We will be starting in 1 minute.
This is a check for the audio stream.
You're loud and clear.
Clear for takeoff.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Transit Commission meeting for Thursday, September 14th. Begin by acknowledging that Ottawa is located on unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation, whose culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. It's important
to point out that Ottawa is on the Anishinaabe Algonquin nation, unceded territory, and their contribution continues to nourish this land.
Anyone watching online or in the room, simultaneous interpretation is available for this meeting. We have no regrets today, although Councillor Brockington has let me know he's going to be a little bit late joining us. I'll ask Eric, our committee coordinator, to do the roll call.
Councillor Brockington. Councillor Carr.
Here.
Councillor Hill.
Present.
Councillor Leeper.
Excuse me. Here.
Councillor Lowe.
Here.
Councillor Menard.
Present.
Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Vice Chair Curry.
Here.
Chair Gower.
Here.
You have quorum, Chair.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, are there any declarations of interest before we begin? Seeing none. Confirmation of minutes. These are the minutes for June 29th, 2023. Are they carried? Carried. Thank you. We have one response to an inquiry on the fraud and waste hotline complaints. Any requests to lift that item? Okay. We have a full agenda today, a number of topics, a number of really interesting topics. We have speakers registered on each and every one of them. So we won't be able to carry any on consent here, but we will begin with our regular monthly update, OC Transpo update for rail, bus, and Paratranspo, and we'll begin with a presentation from OC Transpo staff. Good morning, René. Bonjour.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président. Merci beaucoup. Bonjour à tous.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you for being here today at this Transit Commission meeting. Next slide, please. It's been a busy summer at OC Transpo, so I would like to take the opportunity to provide you with some details about ongoing service initiatives and accomplishments. Let's start with good news. On September 7th, we were very excited to officially launch O-Payment. With O-Payment, customers can simply tap their credit card or mobile wallet to pay for a regular adult fare on buses and O-Train Line 1 fare gates. I'm very pleased to say that OC Transpo is the first transit agency in Canada to introduce daily and monthly fare capping for credit card and mobile wallet payments. With daily fare capping, customers can take multiple trips a day and will never be charged more than the price of the day price, $11.25. Monthly charges will be capped at the price of an adult monthly pass, $125.50. I want to remind you that we launched the same service for para customers this winter. This technology is a little bit different, and para customers can even pay with their debit card. For people who continue to use Presto card, the price of a physical Presto card has been reduced from $6 to $4. Thank you, Metrolinx. Let's move now to another important topic. Fall service changes started on August 27th and included service improvements to help match the anticipated increase in ridership. New school routes were added, and O-Train Line 1 frequency was increased to support students and residents returning to work and school. Shuttle Express in the east continues to operate during peak periods to help support increased ridership. It's important to celebrate when we can. So last month, we proudly supported Capital Pride. This is the 14th year we have held internal Pride events and participated in the Capital Pride Parade. In the next few slides, you will see how we continue to support and promote diversity, equity, inclusiveness, and acceptance at Transpo. Next slide, please. As you can see, we launched our first Pride route bus into revenue service with the motto, "Love moves us." Next slide, please. We updated our website and social media with Pride colors, and the bus stop signs on Bank Street between Queen and Catherine have been rebranded to include Transpo's Pride O. The bus stop sign locations were selected by the Transpo Pride Committee in consultation with internal stakeholders. Next slide, please. The safety and security of our passengers is an important priority for everyone who works at Transpo. This summer, we launched a campaign to help inform customers about ways to enhance their experience while taking transit, and also informing people about the steps our staff take to ensure safety for everyone. The campaign is currently running on social media and will expand into a broader campaign later this fall. Next slide, please. We also recently launched a Return to Transit campaign to welcome back students and community employees. The purpose of this campaign is to increase awareness of our services among new and returning customers who are going back to school and work this fall. We will also use this campaign to promote our Community Pass, which offers a reduced fare on single ride and monthly passes for Ontario Disability Support Program recipients. This one is for Councillor Kavanagh. Next slide, please. As promised, Transpo is continuously monitoring Line 1 customer volumes as the system continues to operate with single car trains. On Monday, September 11, we proactively introduced double car trains to enhance service on Line 1. The number of trains in operation has increased from 13 to 17, with some operating as double car trains throughout the day to help provide customers with frequent service. Reports outlining the root cause of the axle bearing issue and the impact of freezing rain and lighting on the system will be received at the next Transit Commission. After the service disruptions this summer, the Rideau Transit Group, RTG, and the city continue to monitor receding rails. We are also working closely with the National Research Council, the NRC, to complete testing for vibration monitoring. RTG and ALSOM will also continue to advance root cause analysis and the implementation of containment measures to address the axle bearing issue. We recognize the recent closure was very difficult for our customers. The Transpo team has analyzed all options to offer our customers free transit and estimates that it will cost $15 million for 1 month. The dropped ridership significantly impacts our revenue. We are still working on a strong plan to close our gap for this year, as we haven't heard anything from the government. Next year will be the most challenging with the cost of the Trillium line. I want to be able to stabilize our finances, to be able to improve the reliability of our service. As a GM of transit, this is the most important thing that I can offer to the transit users with the taxpayers' dollar. Now, I will ask Jim Greer to provide an update on our recruitment campaign and on bus fleet service availability, as well as our action plan to increase capacity and improve the reliability. Over to you, Jim. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Madame Amokar. Bonjour, Chair Gower and members of Commission. Je m'appelle Jim Greer.
I'm
like
Jim Greer.
On the bus service availability. Customers have experienced an increase in canceled trips compared to the average. We've been really experiencing approximately 200 to 400 canceled trips out of the 8,400 canceled trips that we generally deliver. During the Line 1 disruption in August, more buses were deployed for our 1 replacement buses. This ran up quite a bit of mileage on the buses. We're seeing an average of 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers more per month. So we are, with so many buses in service, many logged those higher kilometers than the average month and required preventative maintenance and inspections. This hit us right in the middle of our primetime vacation season. So we're averaging many times 5 to 6 weeks of vacation per year. And those vacations are generally taken in 5 months of the year, right from June right straight through till September. So when the R1 requirement come in, it hit us right at a very low point in our staffing levels. So it did. The fleet service team expects to clear the maintenance backlog and improve as soon as possible. However, we're anticipating at least another 15 to 30 days. So we are. You may notice that there will be a difference between the online schedules and the printed schedules at the bus stop. Until this issue is resolved, please use the online travel planner or call 613-560-1000 or text 560-560 and enter the bus stop number. So we do work on some action plans, and we are working on some right now. The additional training for mechanics and supervisors. Many of our junior mechanics are on midnight shifts, and that's when we have the most access to the bus. So we are increasing our training for our supervisors, partnerships with other transit agencies. We're reviewing the training matrices and procedures for best practices, involvement of contracted suppliers to ensure all resources are available. And we're using as many vendors as possible with the warranties and everything that we can capitalize on. Recruitment campaigns for licensed mechanics and skilled tradespeople continue. We do have a shortage of skilled tradespeople in the industry. We are doing everything possible to increase our apprenticeship programs, and we are growing our own technicians. There just isn't any technicians out there, so we're doing everything possible. We're working very closely with City HR and Olivia McGinty's recruitment team. So there. Next slide. As far as bus operator recruitment for 2023, I'm pleased to share 260 new operators have been hired. 141 graduated and are on the road. Ongoing and upcoming classes. We have a class of 60 new recruits in training currently. Graduating date is late October. That's going to be very helpful. The next classes of 60 new recruits begin in the fall. I'm pleased to share that we have an all-woman class scheduled for the first time ever. An all-woman bus operator training class is in process and will be led by an all-women trainings. Updates to follow on that. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Chad Mars. Thanks, Jim.
I'm Chad Mars. Thank you, Jim.
Le garant du opération des bus.
I am the manager of maintenance.
Bus operator availability and absenteeism. The graph before you today shows a bus operator availability from January 2021 to July 2023. I'm just going to explain a few of the items here so that you can understand it more fully. The top line here that we have is the number of employed bus operators. So that's the black line. The gray line just below it is the budgeted number of FTEs. The shaded light blue area just below the black line and is representative of the number of bus operators who are performing other work than their bus operator duties on a given day. The dark blue area is the number of operators who are currently inactive on long-term disability, WSIB, or leave of absence. The red shaded area that you see here, called absent, is the number of daily book-offs, daily operator availability issues for each day. And finally, the red line that we see here below is the line that represents the number of operators that are required for service. So our best opportunity to provide operators for all service for the day is when all shaded areas are above the red line. For some context here, like I said, this graph is showing the past 2 years. Over the last year, starting in January and late Q4, there's been some great work between the section head team, our management team, operators, talking about absenteeism and talking about regular attendance at work, and we've seen some really great improvements. We're back to, with a recent report from HR, we're back to 2019 levels, which is nice to see. And you can see that with the slow increase at the bottom of the shaded areas coming up to the red line. So lots of great work going on. We're not where we want to be for sure, but we're getting closer, and there's great response from operators as well as the management team. Thank you. Next slide. Thank you. Here's some action plans related to long-term absences that we've been working on. Been working collaboratively with HR and other transit agencies through Opta to develop strategies to reduce absenteeism. This isn't just an OC Transpo problem. It's definitely across the board in transportation. We've developed an absenteeism task force to review the status of all employees with long-term absences or on WSIB. And we established customized return to work plans for each employee as they come back to work. We're also exploring enhancements of modified work plans, specifically around WSIB for returning employees to bus operations. Identifier les positions qui pourraient être...
We've also identified positions that could be vacated, and we're offering support throughout the process. Through the Employee and Family Assistance Program and through the peer support network as well.
Next slide, over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Chad. Next slide, please. Okay. Bonjour, Commission des Transports. Je suis Paul Trébutin.
Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Trébutin. I'm head of safety at OC Transpo. Today, I'll be talking to you about injuries affecting employees and passengers. To date, in terms of our employees, there have been 511 injuries at OC Transpo. For July, there were 71 injuries, and that's lower than the monthly average.
The top 3 injury types were struck/caught by an object, assault, and harmful environmental traumatic stress event. Among the assaults and traumatic stressful event injury types, the majority of these occurred to our bus operators. Most of the safety incidents with bus operators are the result of unruly and intoxicated passengers, and some passengers refusing to pay the required bus fare. To aid in addressing this, as Madame Amilcar previously mentioned, we've put together a communication campaign that sets out expectations on customer behavior when using public transit. Now, looking at the customer injury rate, the safety management system target is 1.036 injuries per 1 million trips in our system. And what we've seen to date is that we're holding fairly closely to the 2022 number. We continue to see that hard braking events on buses are the main reason for injuries that require medical attention for our customers. These hard braking events support what we're seeing on the next table related to vehicle collision rate. We observe that both the total vehicle collision rate and the preventable collision rate exceed our safety targets. Recognizing that this trend is on the rise, and we have also observed that traffic light infractions are also on the rise, we've put together and launched the one-day mandatory driver refresher training for all OC Transpo employees authorized to operate an OC Transpo vehicle as part of their job duties. Next slide, please. This training focuses on following defensive driving techniques and controlled intersection awareness. It also provides instruction on the standard operating procedures when servicing bus stops. And it also measures the operator's risk profile. So it consists of a 3-hour classroom module on the defensive driving techniques and increasing awareness around servicing stops. And this classroom module is then followed by a drive-able assessment that's designed to require the driver to demonstrate the material they received during the classroom instruction. So looking at the chart on the right, as of the end of August, there were 302 training spaces that were made available by my training team since the 19th of June when this program started. And of those, 280 vehicle operators have received the training. Among the 280, we identified 14 operators that exhibited less than acceptable driving skills in one or more areas of competency evaluated. Their supervisors been provided with a recommendation for additional skills building training. In addition, I'd like to point out that the average risk profile score achieved during the drive-able testing among the 280 drivers was 24.75%. The maximum acceptable risk profile score is 60%. So just like golf, the aim is to achieve the lowest possible risk profile score. And now I'd like to pass the floor to my colleague, Pat Scrimger. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. And we'll start these slides with Paratranspo on-time performance. La ponctualité de Paratranspo.
On-time performance of OC Transpo has remained relatively stable during July and August, 93 and 94% respectively in June and July. This is the percentage of passengers boarding within the 30-minute window.
This slide shows the waiting time on the phone queue for people who call to make a Paratranspo booking, and it remains very consistent where it has been at about 4 minutes right now, still well below the 15-minute guideline given to us by the Transit Commission several years ago. Next slide, please. This shows the number of Paratranspo bookings made by month. You can see it dips a little bit during the summer. And you can also see here, shaded in orange, the number of those bookings that are made using the new online system. A growing percentage, but still a small minority of all of the bookings that are made. The great majority are made by phoning our customer service representatives. Next slide, please. This shows customer complaints about Paratranspo. The volume is the height of the bar, and you can see for June and July It's at a relatively normal level, a little bit less than it was in the spring. And you can see in the colors there the different types of subjects that people are calling about, which are remaining fairly consistent, with service policy being the largest number, booking and information after that, and the other reasons to call relatively lower. And now in the next slide, we move to Paratranspo ridership. Ce graphique montre l'achalandage mensuel total.
So the monthly Transpo ridership figures, the red line represents pre-pandemic conditions in 2019, and the line in gray corresponds to ridership, which is planned or forecast for 2023. And the columns indicate the ridership levels in 2022 for comparison. And we can see in June, the black line the black column shows us that the number of Transpo trips goes well beyond forecasts. Ridership continued to exceed expectations in July, 59.9 thousand trips. And the forecast was 53,600 trips. Next slide, please.
Transpo fare revenue slightly and continuing to be slightly above the budgeted level through this year. And then the next slide. Now we move to O-Train Line 1 service delivery. When operation has been going well, it's very close to 100%, and you can see quite clearly the days last winter in the middle of the page where ridership dropped because of freezing rain problems, and you can see a gap over on the right for the days during July and August when O-Train Line 1 service was suspended. You can see that we delivered in the month of July 53.9% of the planned service, but up until the suspension of service, we were running at 99.4%. So we covered, as it says there, Blues Fest and Canada Day. And then during the month of August, taking all the days into account, we did cover 56% of the service, but the gap shows the days when no service was operated. You can also see on the bottom left there a listing of the days when we had to have replacement bus service operating through this year. Next slide, please. This slide shows conventional bus service delivery floating around 96% in the summer. And as Jim mentioned earlier, one of the primary reasons that this is lower than we would prefer in July and August is because of the number of buses that needed to be dedicated to replacing the train service. We'll go to the next slide, please. Now, this is looking at that in a little more detail, the conventional bus service delivery. And for the month of July, we've broken it out to show how was service before and after the line 1 closure. So those are the two vertical bar charts on the right-hand side. Up until July 16th, we were delivering 98% of scheduled service, and the 2% that was not delivered was broken down into the categories you can see there, at about a quarter for mechanical breakdowns, about half for on-street service adjustments, and about a quarter for having not enough operators available. As we move into the second half of the month, once the train was closed, we were delivering only just under 96% of our scheduled bus service. And that 4.3%, you can see how that breaks down, with about a sixth of it being for mechanical problems, about 30% related to on-street adjustments, 29% for enough operators not being available, and then a full quarter of it, 25%, were buses that were taken away from regular service to support the R1 service, in addition to the operators who were standing by or the operators who worked overtime. So to put that in context, these are percentages. So you can see that for instance, the on-street adjustments is remaining relatively stable. On the left, you see it's about half of 2%. On the right, it's about quarter of 4%. So that number stays about the same. The operator problem, shortage of operators or inability of to have enough operators on the right is the similar percentage, but of a larger number. So it's a larger total, but that's almost entirely because of the number of operators that were needed to provide the R1 service. And that number came down partway through that period, the mid-July to mid-August period, as we moved some rail operators back to operate the replacement buses. And then on the bottom, at the bottom left corner, as requested, we show the 3 routes in the system that had the highest number of trips that were not delivered. The Line 2 replacement bus at 343 trips not delivered for the month. So we delivered only 93% of scheduled service. Route 11 also at 92.5%, and Route 6 at just a little higher at 94%. So those are the routes that had the lowest service delivery rates on the whole system. We'll go to the next slide, please. Now here is ridership on the conventional system. The black bar is showing this year up to date, and following, you can see they're following the budget prediction, the forecast that was part of the budget. We're a little bit lower in April and May. We're right there in June, a little bit under July. And once the August numbers come in, we expect them to be a little bit lower as well, because July and August were so heavily affected by the closure of Line 1. But we are seeing, good signs so far in the first few days of September. And so we're very interested to see when the September numbers are fully in, whether we're up at the forecasted level or a little below or a little above. We just need to see. The next slide shows revenue for that same year, follows the same pattern, but a little bit below budget all the way through the year. And that's primarily because the ridership that has returned to the system is predominantly people who pay with a discounted fare. The people who are still not traveling on OC Transpo is primarily people who would be working otherwise, who are working at home or are working office workers who would be working at home or working a hybrid workplace, and therefore the customers that we're missing are the customers who would be paying the highest fares normally. We'll go on to the next slide, please. And I'll turn you over to Troy Charter.
All right, merci, Pat. Thank you very much. At the last Transit Commission meeting, we committed to providing an update on the actions taken to improve the cleanliness of the stations. I'd like to start off by saying that we've heard the feedback. We've heard from yourselves, we've heard from the councillors, we've heard from our customers, and over the past year, in working with our maintainer, we're taking the necessary steps to improve and sustain the cleanliness of the stations. The improvement of the look and the feel, we know it has an impact on the customer experience, and it's something very much that RTM and that our staff are committed to. Nous avons entendu les commentaires des conseillers et de nos clients.
We have heard what our customers and our councillors have had to say, and during the last year, we have set up concrete actions in order to deal with the situation. We have plans, and we are going to show you now the next stages of our plan.
So as you're aware, Rideau Transit Maintenance is responsible for the maintenance of all the LRT stations with oversight from the city. The rail operations team has worked with RTM to review the existing processes, to implement plans, procedures, tools, and even communication channels that will bring lasting improvements. The plan has and will continue to improve the cleanliness of all our LRT stations, and will also be applicable to Stage 2 stations as well. The key elements of the improvement plan include a more detailed and fulsome listing of the daily, weekly, and seasonal cleaning activities. We've shared detailed plans for greater oversight amongst both respective parties, and there's a greater understanding of what happens on a daily and weekly basis. We have weekly and monthly meetings that have been implemented to review the progress and the status of the station cleaning activities. One of the most important pieces as well is that RTM took the initiative and they changed their cleaning subcontractor. They recognized it was an issue and they changed their cleaning subcontractor. Another key component to the plan is the increased oversight by by RTM and the city. RTM has assigned dedicated resources to oversee their cleaning subcontractor. And we, the city, we've increased our oversight both using our field personnel as well as our control personnel in our Transit Operations Control Center through the use of the CCTV cameras. RTM has also recognized the need and has increased staffing resources for cleaning activities, as well as investing in additional training and tools such as floor scrubbers for the cleaning staff. All of this is having a positive effect. We've also introduced a new cleanliness and small work request reporting system to assist in a quicker response to minor issues, as well as assisting us to identify problematic areas and trends so that we can dedicate staff to those areas for more timely response and try to even be proactive and get ahead of things. Overall, we're seeing that there's increased communication between the parties, including the ongoing collaboration with RTM, and when they're looking at updating their station management plans, reaching out to us for our feedback and including that feedback into how they're going to manage them moving forward. Next slide, please. Over the past several months, we have observed a number of improvements and completed activities. The semi-annual deep cleans, which are now jointly planned each year for the spring and fall, have been completed. And the activities that we monitored very, very closely this year, we wanted to monitor to make sure that they were completed for one, but it was about a more timely completion as well. One of the pieces of feedback that we heard before was, the city does its spring cleanup, and it wasn't aligned with what the LRT spring cleanup was when the LRT spring cleanup was happening. So that was one of the things that we focused on this year. But the activities that were completed, pressure washing of all the stations, deep cleaning of the floors, the walls, the windows, both for the inside and the outside stations, general station repairs, tile work. So there's always going to be from time to time some cracked tiles. So fixing those cracked tiles, concrete repair at U Ottawa Station, as well as the clearing of the seasonal debris, that salt in the sand that exists post-winter season. The planned maintenance period in June was also leveraged to perform a series of additional deep clean activities that are difficult to perform during normal maintenance hours. These included targeted areas such as the escalator landing plates, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Glassworks, cleaning of art along the guideway, painting touch-ups throughout the stations as well. And this is another item I'll talk about in a little bit. A pilot project in which we've removed paint in certain areas where, within the tunnel sections, the walls, there's some moisture there that results in some issues with the paint. Additionally, there have been a number of implemented improvements to enhance their cleaning practice, and we're seeing those positive results. We've seen a considerable improvement in the cleaning of the stainless steel on escalators, the cleaning of the floors and the walls, the elevator and glass cleaning, painting of the outside benches, and other small works such as I mentioned, the tile replacement and graffiti removal. Overall, we are seeing that there's an increased responsiveness to the daily issues. So we're pleased with what the progress we've seen. But as I'll talk to in the next slide, please, we know that it still is a work in progress, and there's still more areas that we need to focus on and continue to improve. So a few of those areas that we know that we need to continue to focus our attention and continue to improve on. One of them is the escalators. So as I mentioned, we have seen improvements in the stainless steel, the cleaning, the polishing of those, but we know the landing plates, the top and the bottom of the escalators, is an ongoing issue and needs some attention. There is a daily and weekly cleaning program in place, and for those escalator landing plates, approximately 70% of them complete. Moving forward, what they're doing is they're going to be matching this deep clean of the landing plates with the semi-annual maintenance program for the escalators to minimize the downtime. When they're doing the deep clean of these plates, the escalators need to be taken down, and there is TSSA requirements as well for the ongoing maintenance. So we're matching those two up to minimize the downtime of the escalators, but to give some attention to those areas that need attention from a cleaning perspective. RTM also recognizes that there's improvements required in the cleaning of the escalator steps themselves, and they are investigating what additional equipment they could purchase or they could bring in a lease to assist with that deep cleaning. So, we know the escalators, it's a point that we've seen a lot of feedback on. Definitely the landing plates and the steps are a work in progress that we need to continue to focus on. Another major area is the in-station water infiltration. It's been an ongoing concern in the downtown tunnel stations. The water infiltration results in chipping and peeling of paint, some discoloration, and is highly visible, which impacts the customer experience. Sealant has been applied where there has been water infiltration into the tunnel walls, and you can see examples of this through the downtown tunnel stations. But the picture you have there is the long escalators at Rideau Station. As I mentioned as well, we've also removed paint at certain small locations where there's moisture, and it's causing that paint to chip and peel. So in those locations, we've removed the paint and we've gone to bare concrete, and we want to assess not only just the look and the feel, but what happens through the seasonal activities and the cleanliness aspect of it. Want to let everyone know that the current look is temporary. Once the solution in the sealant and the removal of the paint, once we've been able to confirm that it is effective, we will be addressing the aesthetics. At this point, we need to get through the winter and the spring season to see what happens. We're confident that it will produce the desired results, but we want to make sure that before we start looking at the aesthetics and possibly repainting or doing something with the coloration of the sealant, that it has produced the desirable results. As well, another location is Parliament Station. People have noticed that over the summer, the sealant artwork was temporarily removed. This is once again to address the leaks and put in sealant in place. When we're able to confirm that the solution is effective, the artwork will be reinstalled. At that time. So we want to get through the winter and spring season and confirm that the results are there. We're going to continue to monitor the repairs through the seasonal cycles, and we'll be also looking at other locations where paint removal is a viable option, and it doesn't necessarily impact the look and the feel, but is easier for our maintainer to clean, and it won't result in that discoloration and the chipping and peeling of paint. And the last point here is, we're in the process. Winter is fast approaching, and so we're already in the process of conducting our seasonal reviews of our winter operating plans. These meetings have been ongoing for a while now, and then we'll continue through the winter season. We recognize that the cleanliness of stations is a lot more challenging in the winter than it is in the summer. Some areas that we're going to spend specific attention as a result of feedback we received is definitely the mopping of the stairwells, the entrances, especially during weather events, as well the installation, ongoing cleaning of the winter mats, and then the post-storm winter cleanup. That's one of the areas where we received a lot of feedback on that as well. Next slide, please. So overall, to conclude, important progress has been made to enhance the station cleanliness at all our stations. As mentioned previously, the leaks in the stations continue to be a priority, and we'll monitor the repairs through the seasonal cycles to assess their effectiveness. We have taken, and RTM has taken comprehensive actions, and we're starting to see those results. And we've, added, both parties have added resources and oversight to ensure that those positive results will continue and we can sustain them. En conclusion, des progrès importants ont été réalisés.
So important improvements have been made to improve cleanliness in all of the stations. We have a global resource plan, and extra surveillance will be carried out, and we will be working with the RTM to make sure that cleanliness and plans are pursued.
We review this as a work in progress. There's areas in which we know we can and will improve. But we are also reaching out to other transit agencies and transit properties and speaking to their cleaning programs, their frequencies, resourcing, as well as looking at things as how they conduct their station audits and surveys and those types of things. So we're continuing to collect that information, looking at industry best practices, and we'll continue to incorporate them into our plans to continue to improve and provide that welcoming environment for our customers. Thank you.
Chair, j'aimerais aussi ajouter que une fois par année minimum.
I'd like to add that once or twice a year maximum, we will be giving you a status as to the cleanliness of all stations.
Merci.
Thank you.
We have 2 delegations registered. The first speaker is Kyle Humphrey, who I believe is online. So we'll just give Kyle a moment to connect. So we'll go to our delegations, then we'll go to questions from our committee members.
Hey, everyone.
Good morning, Kyle.
How's everyone doing today?
Great. So I think you've been here before, and each of our delegations has 5 minutes to share your comments for the committee. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I just want to start off by saying I'm very much appreciative of the Paratranspo numbers. Seeing that the numbers have held steady so far as I can see, and held at what I believe was a 75% pre-COVID rate. It seems that people are only taking the buses for the medically necessary and appointment necessary means, and that is exactly what OC Transpo marketed a little while back. It was take the bus, take Paratranspo to get your groceries, and take the rest of OC Transpo to go out and have fun, have a good time, but take Paratranspo to get your groceries. And so that is exactly what is being done. And I'm wondering if Paratranspo can't be marketed to go out and have fun with your friends. Paratranspo should be a service that runs in parity with the rest of the service. And when it comes to making same-day plans and trying to go out and have a job and have a life that rivals that of the LRT life and the OC Transpo conventional service life that everyone finds a way to complain about one time or another, Paratranspo still holds its own in being worse. There's still no same-day booking, which doesn't allow Paratranspo users to go out and pick up a shift. It doesn't allow same-day medical appointments. It doesn't allow same-day meetups with friends. It doesn't allow so many services that the OC Transpo conventional service does. And it is at this time, 4 years later, a little over 4 years later to the day, that I'm asking once again a same-day service for Paratranspo, not just the buses being used for the Route 28, but Paratranspo service itself. I'm asking that be instituted, because Paratranspo users do not have the luxury of getting on a bus at a whim, grabbing the milk and going to see their friend. They don't have that ability. And I can see so many people not canceling the same day, which I know is a problem for Paratranspo. Not canceling at the door, not canceling the morning of, all those kinds of things. If they were able to book the same day, if they had 24-hour access to booking, instead of just between 9 and 5 or 7 and 5, there's so many ways that we can open this up and work together to make Paratranspo a better service. And 4 years in, a little more than 4 years in, I'm really hoping that we can all work together and restart this and make those call times even shorter if we can, and make sure that the next generation that uses Paratranspo doesn't have to deal with the same things that I've been dealing with for several years. So thank you so much for my time. That's all I need to say today.
Okay, thanks very much, Kyle. Are there any questions from committee members for Kyle? I'm seeing none, but I have a question for you, Kyle, because I know same-day service for Paratranspo, we've heard a lot of requests from customers, and we don't offer it now. I think it's someplace where in the future we'd like to get to. I want to better understand what your expectations would be if there was same-day booking available. What's a reasonable amount of time that you might have to wait for that service to arrive? Is it 30 minutes? Is it an hour? Is it within 4 hours? I'm just trying to get a better understanding of what is reasonable, or what you'd like to see from Paratranspo in the future.
I think 4 hours would be a great start, and then if we can shrink it from there, then we can do that. And if we have to expand it, then we have to do that. But I think 4 hours would be a great start. If I call, say, at lunchtime, I'm at work one day and my colleagues are talking around the lunch table, and we say, hey, let's go out for whatever tonight. Okay, great. Then I can do that. And especially people working from home these days who don't have to book Paratranspo. If I work at a facility, I'm able to change my booking. But if I'm working from home, there's no booking. So I think a 4-hour wait time or a 4-hour window would be a fine amount of time to start, and then we can go from there. And I think that the overnight booking is also a great start in how we book that. I think that some of the call takers need to be refreshed on how that works. As my first time, I had an issue and I ended up just going home afterwards and not using the service because things didn't work out. But Paratranspo needs to take a look and see how the people need to use it these days, and not just what people think it's for. Because at the end of the day, there's an entire service of people who are almost modeling their lives after this service and not going out and not having a good time. And that's why we don't see people in wheelchairs going out and doing things. That's why I'm basically the face of everything that happens in Ottawa, because I have friends and I'm able to get into someone's car and I'm able to fit here and there. And someone in the power chair wouldn't have that ability. And someone who has less mobility than getting into a car wouldn't have that mobility. And Paratranspo really limits people based on that. So I think a 4-hour window to start would be great. And then watch and see as the social lives of people that use Paratranspo grow and flourish and prosper, and just the number of people who rely on that service will start to find their lives again and find passions and really do what I'm thinking most of you want to do with this city, to live in.
Okay, thank you, Kyle, for that, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Our second speaker unfortunately isn't able to join us, so we can move on now to questions from councillors for staff. We covered a lot in that presentation, so on any of those topics. Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much. I have a number of questions just across the area, just for my own information. I think before I get into some of the more detailed questions, though, I feel as if there's a bit of a disconnect with respect to how we are painting the adequacy of single cars on the LRT right now versus the demand and some of the crowding. So I am seeing crowding on those single cars, and residents are asserting that there is inadequate capacity to handle the demand, with single cars being the predominant form of service on the LRT right now. Do you have a way to quantify what that demand is versus the supply, and impacts like uncomfortable overcrowding of train cars?
It's a very good question, Councillor. Yeah, our TOCC, our Transit Operation Control Center, they're monitoring the service, the entire time it's running, and they have access to the platform cameras at all the stations. So when there are situations where potentially a train can't pick up all those passengers, the TOCC is aware and they flag and record it. The majority of the time that we are seeing is that the trains are busier. We're seeing more people on them, and I know that single car trains, but it's back to what we originally anticipated with the LRT line back at launch. Busy trains transporting a lot of people, safely and reliably. But there are a handful of occurrences every day in those peak times, very, very short windows of time, where 1 or 2 stations you may see 5, 10, 15, and there's been a few occurrences where it's a little bit more than that. Of not everyone, boarding a train. Sometimes it's people electing to wait for the next train. The next train is likely going to be that double train or something like that, and I'll have more space. But there are certain situations where, particularly say maybe at U Ottawa, at when a class lets out, where we see a slightly larger number of people. But for the most part, the train service that we're providing is meeting the capacity, with some very limited situations in those peak of the peak periods, where some people are electing to either stay or couldn't technically board. So the control center is monitoring that. They're making the adjustments, and that's we've been able to add some cars to help alleviate some of that capacity. And but for the most part, we're seeing that capacity being met. And we know that, historically, as our ridership is tends to be really high the first couple of weeks of September, and then does tend to dip down a little bit as people, get into their rhythms and change their travel patterns a little bit. So we're definitely sort of at that peak of the peak right now.
Purely anecdata, the last trip I took on the peak hour LRT this week, we left passengers behind, maybe 15, but then a double came along and I assume picked them all up. It was uncomfortably crowded, but part of that was also due to door crowding, people not moving back in the train. So I don't know if there's something we can think about in terms of encouraging people to use the full capacity of the train. We have in 2023 hired 260 operators, of whom 141 are now on the road. How does that compare to target?
Thank you for the question. I would prefer if we could have all people on board now, because we know that we have to be ready for the tram line. However, we are okay, but we continue to hire people, and we are confident that we will make it happen.
Just in terms of, are we at 75% of the number that we thought we'd have hired by now, or 90% of who we thought we'd have hired by now?
Thank you for the question. It's an ongoing process, and I'm sure that my team can send me a text, and I will give it to you. However, for today, I can say that we are good. We would prefer to have 60 class graduated, but we are okay for today, and we continue to work on it.
Okay. Maybe in future with the presentation, that could be a number of what our targets are versus the actual. On slide 11, there was an interesting, and I'm sorry, I forget how you titled the graph. The number of operator availability. And if I remember what that chart showed in January of 2021, other work was a much smaller number. Today, that's a much larger number. And if we were to pull that number back to what it was in 2021, we would have enough operators to meet service, if I recall what the graphics showed. What is that other work on which drivers are working, and why are they doing that instead of being on the road?
So, Mr. Chair, there's a number of jobs that bus operators move into as operating demands require. Some of them are moving out of being a bus operator, going to be a train operator. Some of them are in training to become a train operator. Some of them move up to be a supervisor. So there's two primary things that are happening right now is as we get ready for the opening of train lines 2 and 4, we've got a lot of jobs that need to be filled, and people are moving up. So people who are now supervisors are moving up to be train controllers. People who are now operators applying to become supervisors, and then other operators become acting supervisors to bolster them. But the other thing that goes on is that when training is at its highest, as it is now, the acting instructors, the interim temporary instructors to cover that peak, get pulled, get applied, and get selected up from the bus operator pool. So while all those things are going on, they're not available to drive buses, and we have to hire still more people to replace them. But the people who get hired to replace the trainers have to be trained by the trainers, which requires more trainers. So it's a little bit cyclical.
So getting back to that January 21 number is largely a matter of hiring more operators to fill positions that have been left vacant because people are working on stage 2 tasks, and it will balance out in the end.
That's right. And Mr. Chair, if you think back to January 21, we were also in about one of the depths of the pandemic, with the least much less activity going on everywhere, and a strong emphasis on frugality all across the city organization.
Okay, And I know my colleagues have lots of questions. The 85 didn't show up in the most canceled routes or the top two. I appreciate the efforts that you made to accomplish that. And one number, I don't know whether it's something you'd want to provide on a regular time, but I'd ask if you could send my office, if you have any way of providing it, the real headways that have been offered for, say, the last 2 months. I don't know if you have a stat that you can supply me to show me that from this time to this time, the trains were running with this headway, and then it subsequently moved to this headway, subsequently moved to that headway. Thank
We
you.
have this info. Go ahead.
Yeah, Councillor, that's, yeah, we can easily provide that information. I know there's been changes with regards to the number of vehicles that we've had in service, but we can definitely provide you a list of,
2 months.
2 months, and yeah, here's the number of trains that were in service at this time. Here is the headway that was delivered. So yeah, we can provide that information, no problem.
Thank you. Thanks.
Chair, if you don't mind, my team is very excellent. So we are at 65% on our target. That doesn't mean we are late. Our target is from January until December and even next year.
So are you feeling confident then at 65% as of, I'm sorry, which month was that? That was July or August? The most recent hiring numbers you gave us. Are you going to make your target?
Yes.
Okay.
And one of the things that I can say, we are looking for 296 people and we have hired 260. But we know that we hired people to have graduate people, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'll see.
Okay, Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to staff for the presentation. I just want to start off with the bus reliability stats that you've provided. Can you confirm that the reliability rate that you're aiming for is 98.5%? Is that the target that you have communicated with us in the past?
Chair, my target is 99.5.
99, okay. So looking at the stats over the last year, you have not met that target once. You have met the target of 98.5 once out of 12 months. And the last few months, there's a downward trend. So where is this on your priority list? And we've had a number of discussions about bus reliability. You're now giving us the top 3 routes per month, which is appreciated. I appreciate the transparency, but this continues to be an issue. So can you please let us know your plans to address this?
Absolutely. So, Chair, first, we need to stabilize the service. And I think Jim Greer explained it very well today, that we have some challenges and we are addressing those challenges with a very strong action plan. And for sure, when we have issue with the LRT and we have to provide errand service, you understand that it cannot be possible to achieve the 99.5. And the 99.5, it's a very aggressive target. And this is worldwide as well. And I have a lot of colleagues around the world that has the same target. And the way that the model is built here, we'll continue to work with the planning, with my team, to see how we can make it happen. But for sure, we need to have more bus drivers, just in case that we have to face with the problems as we had this in July and August. We will need to face with the absenteeism. So that's why we shared a lot of info with you today to see where we are focusing to make sure that we have a perfect a perfect plan where we can achieve this 99.5.
Yeah, and as a transit commissioner, if I'm working in concert with you in identifying that bus reliability is a #1 priority or a main priority, and we're aware of the factors that are contributing to bus reliability, then what I expect at the Transit Commission is a clear explanation. We know what the factors are that are contributing. Here's what we've done the last month to address those factors, to reduce the challenges that we've had with bus reliability. That is a main issue for people in the city. I just want to switch to the cleanliness of the station. I really appreciate the detail that Mr. Charter provided this morning. Talk to me about our payments to RTM. If service requests from the public continue, if there continue to be cleanliness issues, does RTM get penalized at all? You said that the contractor that they use has been changed. That's good. It's obvious to everyone there were problems here, that basic work was not being done. But going forward, how do we hold them accountable if these issues continue?
That's a great question. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, within the project agreement, there's a number of mechanisms that are included in what we call the pay mechanism. So we have processes in place in which, if there is something observed or something reported from a customer, we issue a work order, and then that gets rectified. But then we go one step farther. We can use our cameras, we can use our staff. We look at their plans, and if they're not meeting if they're not following through on their requirements, and we do have opportunities to issue both failure points as well as a monetary penalty as well. So those are part of our contractual mechanisms that we have in place, and we can use that to hold them to account. One of the things that was very important for us was getting more detail on what their detailed cleaning plans were on that daily, weekly, and seasonal aspect. And that's how we have more line of sight now to hold them to account. If it's, their plan was, we're going to do auto scrubbing twice a week. Because the PA won't get into that level of detail, say, it's sort of a standard based, on a weekly basis, you'll ensure that the floors are clear of scuff marks and gum and those types of things. How they go about doing that, that's on them. I hold them to account to make sure that they're meeting that performance standard. So I needed more information from them as to how are you going to meet that standard. So now we have that information, and then that's how we can hold them to account, and then we can issue those. We don't want to, but we want to see those clean stations, but we do have those mechanisms in the contract to issue the penalties, and it can affect them both short term and long term.
That's great to hear. As we all know, stations are in many respects like ambassadors for OC Transpo, not just for our regular riders, but for people not from Ottawa. They get in the LRT station for the first time, and first impressions are so very, very important. So I'm very happy to receive this report today. The chart on absenteeism, again, I appreciate the information you've dug up for us. A little difficult to understand, especially for people who don't sit around this table, but are interested in OC Transpo issues. I think that table you presented would be challenging for some people to understand. Talk to me just basic absenteeism rates. What is the ongoing absenteeism rate at OC Transpo?
Thank you, Chair. First, I agree that the chart is not very easy to understand, but I want to make sure that today it's a first time ever.
Sure.
So we'll come back for sure with a lot of data on that, and we'll be able to have a deep dive if you wish. So we are sitting just for the operators actually between 11 and 13%. Which is very, very high. However, as Chad Maas said this morning, we have seen an improvement since last year. So that means what we're doing with our people is good, but we need to continue to work to see how we can have people coming at work. And you have to understand as well that, and this is something that we will bring on a future Transit Commission meetings, there's a lot of CLC code that people can call sick without showing any paper, etc. So we have to take that in consideration because this is their right. So to achieve my 99.5, I will need to come back to you maybe, and I ask Transit Commission to, okay, how are we going to deal with that? Because if I know that it's the right to take a day off, I will need to continue to deliver the service on a daily basis without those people. So that means I will need more people than expected. So this is a discussion that we will need to have here. My goal is 99.5, but frankly, it's our goal. It's our desire, because if we want a good transit service, we must deliver 99.5, but do we have the ambition to do so? Do we have the capability to do so? this is my responsibility to bring things over to you, but it will be our decision at the end of the day.
Excellent, thank you. I acknowledge there's some internal matters you'll have to address as the GM, as the leader of the organization, but also what we look to ensure that bus reliability is met is that you plan accordingly. If you know that the rate is a certain number and that's consistent, whether it's high or not, I'm not trying to justify the number. There needs to be proper planning to ensure the buses get on the street. But I want to continue that conversation. Chair, I have other questions. There's a long list, so I'm going to park it for now, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Menard.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the presentation today and the PowerPoint in advance. I'm going to focus on the LRT shutdown and some questions around that. Do we have more information from yourselves now if a notice of default is going to be issued to RTM for the shutdown?
Chair, if you don't mind, I can maybe come back to this question specifically because we are still negotiate with RTM and RTG, and I don't want to say anything that could maybe not help me. So I will let you know for sure.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll look forward to that information, hopefully sooner rather than later, just in terms of our own plan, even if it's internally, to know the plan here. There was a recent reporting on the amount of funds that we're providing to RTM on a monthly basis, and what we're not reporting on. And so I'm just wondering, what's your approach now? How often are you going to be publicly reporting the monthly public funds that are going to RTM? What's your plan here?
Chair, I have been very transparent here by saying when RTG doesn't deliver the service, we don't pay RTG. So this is the first thing. One of the things that I can say, maybe we can say, okay, now we know that the RTG is delivering the service, but not the way that we would expect. So again, I'm on the process of negotiating with them because I have my view on how much I should pay them to deliver this level of the service versus what I would expected. And I'm not done yet, but I'm coming for sure. But what I can say for July, definitively, it will be $0 to RTG. So this is firm, and I'm working on August and potentially September as well, and we can come back here to say what will be the penalty.
Okay, no, that's helpful on the July piece. Just in terms of process, though, for the future, when will we, like, how and when will we be releasing public information about how much we're paying RTM regularly? Like, are you planning to do it every few months at the end of the year? And then when will councillors know? It's public information, obviously. It's public dollars we're paying. So when will councillors know those figures on a regular basis?
I don't know if someone here, maybe Isabel, do you know? I think last year it was year payment. I'm correct. I can verify and come back to you. Okay. I just need to know if it's something that we provide normally yearly or twice a year. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I recall getting updates, I think every few months on it, and then it became less so as time went on. But I just think it'd be good, Chair, if we had a process or if when we know, how councillors will know and find out. So I think more reporting given issues is better. It seems from the presentation there's not a suggestion yet for compensation for riders given the LRT shutdown. Am I correct in that assumption? We're not planning on any type of compensation at this point, or am I not correct?
Thank you, Chair. So I have said many times this is council decision for sure, but this morning I brought that for 1 month it's 15 million, and we'll see when we'll talk about my shortfall this year and what is coming next year, it will be challenging one. So the council will take the final decision. So I just brought what that will cost. And I don't have the money now to do so.
Okay, Chair, do you have other questions? I think I'll introduce this direction now, if that's okay, just given, what I'm trying to do is have a low-cost option for people that recognizes there's service lost here, but that compensates the entire city on different routes, as we're seeing in other cities. So the direction is the recent shutdown of the light rail system has had a significant impact on transit riders across the cities throughout North America and across the world, including Calgary, Boston, Tampa, Tallinn, Assault, parts of Iceland, Catania, Italy, as well as the state of Connecticut, the country of Luxembourg, have policy tools around transit and free transit. And Transit Commission, I think, should direct transit services staff to review associated costs and revenue impacts of providing 6 months of free transit for high volume routes on congested major arteries. So specifically Bank Street, Hazeldean Road, Saint Joseph Boulevard, Montreal Road, and Carling Avenue as compensation for the recent shutdown of light rail. And I just bring this forward, Chair, because it targets every single area of the city and also has a goal of reducing congestion. And I don't think we're going to get any big shift in transit with tinkering or small moves. I think we need a big move. We need to start doing things differently here, or we're going to keep going down this hole we're in. So I really hope that we can, I guess this is a request for information at the end of the day. It's a direction for information, but I hope we can come back with something that allows for some compensation for riders. And this would be a much less expensive way of doing that while still piloting something that could be successful in our city, and it's worth trying. So I'll leave that direction there.
Well, I'll just ask staff if staff are ready to accept that direction.
Yes.
Okay. Staff have accepted the direction, so it's usually not open to debate after that point. Yeah, and this would be coming back as part of our budget process in November. Okay, thank you.
And Chair, just a couple last questions, that's okay. Just on the bus shortages or the driver shortages, I'm wondering how many runs are SNO for no operators versus no bus. What's the difference between the two?
Jim, are you good to go with this question, please?
Sure. I know Chad Moss, who's on the call here today, sends a report every day. And generally with the buses, we've been pretty good right up until August. So where our bus counts have been in there, but we do lose roughly 15 to 20 runs a day on no bus. And then on an average, we're seeing, I would say, 60 to 70 cancellations with the operators, but it depends on what the operator books on his actual run, because there might be multiple trips on an individual run. So that impacts the total cancellations. But we do, our largest challenge is with having the necessary operators to do the work. Obviously this summer primetime vacation, the R1 shutdown hit us hard in August, which caused us the backlog of buses, but the staff is working very, very hard to recover on that. So we'll see more operator challenges than bus challenges in the future, I'm sure.
Okay, so it's very helpful. That's very helpful. It seems like, yeah, so obviously operators, so the hiring is going to be extremely important as we move along, and obviously not having too much attrition. On the no bus side, when are we expecting more buses to arrive to help fill that gap?
Thank you for the question, Chair. Jim's team is working on an action plan, as I said. So we have seen a significant augmentation on the bus since the last week. So this is great. And it's normal, it's after the vacation, people are back. But we are still working on another action plan, because we know that we're supposed to to start receiving the e-buses this year to replace old buses. And unfortunately, with the NIC, and I think you know what happened with the e-buses program. So we are very, very far on our program. So because of that, we will need to work with those tired buses, and we will need to reshape them. So the engineering department, myself, Jim, we have daily meeting on that to see what we have to do to be able to keep those old buses and deliver the service with them. And in the meantime, we continue for sure to work on the e-bus program to bring new buses. And for sure, when we will have new buses, the reliability will be definitely be better. We can see the difference between the articulate buses who are very old buses versus the 40-foot buses who are very, very a huge reliability.
Okay, thanks for that. The last question I have is just, are the temporary canceled trips, TCTs being included in the delivery statistics that we're seeing, those temporary canceled buses, or are they not being included?
The temporary canceled trips, Mr. Chair, had, we've just gone through and done that exercise now, so you'll see them. They would be in a future update.
In future updates? Okay, thanks very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Your question, Councilor Menard, about the reporting on payments to RTG, I think it's a good one, and something we could ask staff when we get to our next item in Q2, because there is, in our regular reports, there is some high-level reporting, but it's a good question to ask. Okay, we're going to go to committee members first. So Councillor Lowe and then Councillor Hill, and then we'll go to Councillor Dudas and Councillor Kavanagh. Councillor Lowe, you're up next.
Mine's not turning on. Oh, it's on. Okay. Thank you. So I kind of want to build on what my colleague there was asking about the fleet. And you had mentioned that it's going to stabilize soon, and that's mostly a maintenance backlog from additional mileage from buses on the road because of R1, mostly. What was that timeline again for stabilization on the fleet maintenance side?
I can take that question, Chair. We're seeing improvements already just in the first week of staff returning back. So I'm anticipating 30 days, but every week it's getting better. We were coming up, we had about 83, 84 work orders at the start of the week that were too many, and now we're down into the 30s and 40 range. So the guys have made a very, very great progress this week, but we're just catching up. These buses are not new in the fleet. Just to put things into perspective, our 60-foot fleet on a 15-year life cycle, they're sitting in there around the 13, 14-year mark. They've got 920,000 kilometers on them. And we're seeing with the recent demand on the schedules and that, we're seeing increases of 2,000 kilometers a month. So they're getting used. They're out on the road. The staff are working hard to keep these things running, but they're not new buses. Our newest fleet of buses are the 40-foot buses. They're averaging 250,000 kilometers year to date. They're 4 years old, and we're seeing a lot of their mileage-driven preventive maintenance programs on the 40-foot buses, and we're seeing more and more workload. So when we look at our staff, they work hard. It's a 7/24 operation. They're doing everything they can to keep these things rolling, but they do earn vacation every year, and it's well-deserved vacation. And they are, the vacation time kicks in May and runs right straight through till September. So we lose, on an average, I would say 70% of our staff, and we see a backlog of work that starts to pile up. In the past, we used to reduce service in the summertime. Councillor Lowe, I'm sure you're aware, we used to do major reductions in the summertime, but we're not seeing that now. Ottawa's getting a lot more livelier. There's a lot more special events in the summertime. There's a lot more demand on transit. So our schedules are staying a lot more flatline throughout the year, which is causing us a lot more backlog throughout the summertime. So we are looking at that, but the sooner we purchase newer buses, it's going to be a,
a, a big relief for us all involved. So that's for sure.
Thanks very much. And yeah, I remember you just said there the e-buses are a little delayed, right? So this is probably contributing to it. Something that you mentioned there was the articulated buses are approaching 13 years-ish. I think 2009 was when they were procured. So we seem to always buy buses in very large tranches, and this may be a budget question, I'm not sure. But we seem to always buy buses in very large tranches, and every so often this means that we're going to have to refurbish or sell and then buy like 300 new buses in the case of the articulated buses. Has there ever been any thought or consideration to a more kind of steady state procurement model? And if that's is that something that's more entrenched in our policy, or is that something that that's just been decisions that we make kind of on the fly?
I could answer that question, Chair. We did actually use that same strategy back 4 years ago when we purchased the Nova buses, the 40-foot buses. We retired close to 250 buses at one time, but we staggered the onboarding and level loaded the procurement process over a period of a few years. So in 2008, we bought roughly 50 to 60 articulated buses, and in 2010 we bought 305. So we did. So the plan, working very closely with Richard Holder and the e-bus team, is as new e-buses are onboarded, we're going to stagger and level load them. So we're not doing such large procurements at the same time, because then all your warranties are not running out at the same time. All the campaigns and recalls are not happening at the same time. So that is very much aligned with our bus procurement strategies.
That's good to know. Oh, was that okay? Yeah, no, that's good to know. Thanks very much. I want to move on then to the rates of collisions that were shown in the presentation there, and it's a concerning number, 2.38 compared to 1.87 last year. Have you determined what, like, are there causes to that number? Is it strictly operator? Is it also like the changing behavior of other motorists on the road? Because there is a difference between preventable and at fault, and even if an operator is not at fault, it can still be considered a preventable collision, right? So there could be a bit of skewing there. So I want to get some more insight into that number, if possible.
Go ahead, Paul, please.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. This number is equally concerning to myself. Among the preventable collisions, what we're beginning to understand that may be a possible underlying cause is associated with this concept of a rushing culture. So we're seeing evidence on the street from customers about buses, perhaps two at a time arriving at a stop, and then other times being late to the stops. And we suspect, we don't have solid evidence to prove this, that there may be more work in a docket for a driver than the person can reasonably accomplish. And perhaps some of that has to do with the changing traffic patterns within the streets. We're also seeing a lot of people coming back to work, possibly using their vehicles to do so. We're seeing increased levels of traffic on 417. So there's a number of things that are happening simultaneously that I believe are playing a contributing factor here to the rise in the preventable collision rate here. So what I've done with my team is we've embarked on what I call a time standard and motion study. So what we've done is we've gone through all of the collision data over the last year. We've gone through the substantial number of trip cancellations. We've looked at passenger loading. And what we've done is identified about 5 or 6 different routes of particular interest where we are going to collect basic timing data from the moment the operator receives their docket to the moment that they complete the work in their docket. and what each of those individual activities within that work package that they're expected to complete, so that we can understand how close reality is in relation to the actual plan. And where we're going with this is we want to be able to ensure that the data we collect is statistically significant, such that we can identify opportunities for improvement, either in our processes, in our planning, in the work expectations from the operators. So we're trying to get to the bottom of this and try to understand if there really is a rushing culture and what are the major contributing factors that that are exacerbating that. So that's where I'm at on that.
Okay, thanks very much. Just I guess a comment. I think this is going to be a very well-rounded, very wholesome look at this, because fulsome look at this. I mean, you can look at it wholesomely too, but because I think the information that Paul shared there, you know, a lot of the collisions and everything, that culture of rushing probably comes from the fleet instability, absenteeism, everything where the next bus can be the first bus in 2 or 3 trips. And then you're inundated with passengers who are angry, who are delayed and frustrated. So, and then that delays that bus, the next bus catches up, causing the bunching, which then kind of gets the cycle going again. So I think as I'm confident that as we look at every single element of the system and as it kind of comes back up slowly, like we'll see these statistics improve as well. So thank you for the information. And one last thing is thank you for the early O train service on Sunday for the Army Run.
Okay, Councillor Dudas. Councillor Dudas, are you on screen?
She might have gone off because you indicated you were going to go to the committee members first. I think it was up next, Chair.
Actually, I'm in the middle of a call, but I do have a very quick question. So if you could just entertain my question, then I'm happy to let the commission members go after, if that's all right. Can I take 2 seconds?
Yep, go ahead.
It's about schools and the school bus route reliability. I know that this is an annual circumstance that gets brought up. And of course, when routes change, once again, that may have domino effects on these routes. I have been hearing from a number of my residents about the 622, as well as the 28 to Lester B. Pearson. I know that, Renee, thank you very much. You and your team have been quick to respond and reflect to those. But my question was, have you been noticing that there's been many delays or canceled routes on the school routes across the city? And is there any way that we can better plan for next school year so that there's not these delays and these impacts on our students and their families?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. In terms of cancellations for the school trips, you know, those are priority trips for us to complete in the control room. I think we've talked previously about priority trips being school trips, first and last trips, trips with really long headways, and other trips in which there's limited other transportation options for people. So school trips are one of our top priorities. So in terms of cancellations, no, you know, there's I'd say there's been 0 cancellations or next to 0 cancellations on those trips. When it comes to the reliability, the on-time performance aspect of it, you know, we do typically see in the first couple of weeks of September that you know, traffic patterns haven't normalized yet, and we do see some variability and some you know, more lateness than what we'd like to see. So we do have a group though within our team, planning, scheduling, operations. They meet weekly, and then we're at that second week point right now where they start to see the trends and they can start to make some adjustments. So there's definitely a few routes and a few challenging points where, due to traffic, you know, the on-time performance is challenged. But you know, the teams now are, you know, they've had those almost 2 full weeks of in-school service to see where those issues are, and they can start attacking them and making adjustments at this point.
So I appreciate the response, and I understand that it's it all depends on what route has construction on it, or different movements of traffic circulation. However, I would suggest we're in a very unique position here in Ottawa, in that with the 2 French boards going the week prior to the 2 English boards, we have that opportunity to kind of suss out what traffic flows will be impacted in a staggered fashion. So my request then to OC would be to use that opportunity of the staggered student return and maybe proactively look at how we can better mitigate the delays. The problem is that when we've got young people, new users sometimes potentially taking OC Transpo, to not be able to catch their bus and to have that frustration in the first 2 weeks is very difficult for them to negotiate. So I'll leave you with that, but I do appreciate the consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dudas. Okay, we're going to go to David Hill, just had a technical issue with Zoom. So we'll go David Hill, and then Councillor Tierney, and then Councillor Kavanagh. Councillor Hill, you're up.
Yep, thank you very much, Chair. My first question is about R1 parallel service. I know that we went through a few iterations of having, well, not the requirement, and then we had it fulsomely as a backstop to the L1 line being out of service, and then we ran it in a parallel for a while, and we're now on to a cycle where it's partial. I just wanted to get a little more clarity as to where we see ourselves going in the next few months on this. As it's an efficiency issue. I'm concerned because of the report indicating the number of route cancellations that we've had on our locals and other routes, how long you anticipate us running that, and if there's perhaps some additional risk that we can take when it comes to that R1 service. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I fully understand, but if you talk about the express shuttle, this will for sure will stay in place until minimum at the end of the year. We are monitoring that line, and now we are good to continue for the next month for sure.
Thank you very much, GM. That is clear, and I guess what I'm saying is I'm challenging that requirement, as it is a parallel service. And at some point, I guess I'm asking the question if we should take the training wheels off this bicycle, given that those buses could be servicing other routes that currently are seeing reduced efficiency.
Chair, frankly, I think that we still need this service because customers really appreciate this service, and we know as well that now we're running a single car train, so I think it's a good buffer, and we can continue to monitor this problem and come back. But for now, I would recommend that we maintain the R1 parallel service.
Okay, thank you very much. And I also want to echo my colleague from Barhaven's comments about the flexibility in service. I know there were some previous concerns, Blues Fest, Canada Day, Ottawa Race Weekend, about train service. I think it's important for us to incorporate that. So I would just reinforce those comments that we need to make sure that our public transit system, for it to be credible on those major events, that it be programmed appropriately for them. So thank you very much for your flexibility in that. I have a couple of other questions, but I'm going to let my colleagues go first. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hill. Councillor Tierney.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I think everyone is feeling some frustration of route cancellations for sure. I have one major issue in my area, and I don't mean to be parochial, but that's what we do as councillors. We work for our constituency. The 224 got canceled way back in the day because of a whole bunch of things. I don't think we're ever going to see that 200 service again. It's just not there. It's not going to happen. But the alternative route was Route 24, and we had literally 3 cancellations of that one route in a series. And I've been seeing this for about a week and a half now. I'm just wondering, first of all, when discussions take place related to which routes to cancel, how do you ensure that they're not consecutive routes? And I'll do the second one at the same time just to save some time for people. And forgive me, do we have open data on routes specific and cancellations? Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, with regards to the route cancellations specifically, our control center, we have controllers that work 24/7, and they're looking at, they're looking at what they have in terms of service that can't be filled either because of an operator or a bus issue. And then they're also responding and reacting to things that are happening on the street in terms of, whether it's collisions or traffic or construction. They try their best to avoid those back-to-back cancellations, and especially in those ones where it's a wider headway where the service is less frequent. There are situations where that it can occur, but we have staff that are specifically looking for that in the control room and trying to minimize and eliminate that as much as possible. When we know that in the coming weeks, when we're able to get the bus fleet up and as have the operators as well, we'll have more resources, and when we have more resources, we have more ability to respond and react to those emerging events that occur. So, but it's definitely something that we do try to avoid as much as possible.
Great. And a final question, Mr. Chair, if that's okay. I just want to throw compliments to the red vest wearers on the platforms, but I also wonder how sustainable that is, because they're being pulled from other jobs to stand on the platform. They do a tremendous job. They are absolutely amazing, but I assume there's some cost related to that. Do we have any ideas what the cost is, as we have a lot of financial pressure?
Councillor, that's something I can come back with a number on. I don't have a number for that, but I can tell you that I know that we do need to start winding down. We are winding down the amount of red vests we have out there. Services is stabilizing, and customers have adapted to the new travel patterns, and they've seen the single and double car operation. So we are winding that back, and yeah, you're right. There is an impact in terms of these are staff that would be doing other things, and we need to get them on that. So, but thanks to our city partners who've been able to help out as well, and there's been people from other parts of the organization that have volunteered to step up and help us support our customers in this regard. So thanks to our city partners in that as well.
Great, and that's good news to hear, because I'd like the professional workforce that would be doing their regular job to get back to their job. They've done an amazing job, but if there's a cheaper customer service solution that must be maintained, I think that's the direction we probably should move into, knowing our financial pressures. But again, thank you very much, and thank you, Chair, for your time.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to my colleagues. Lots of great questions. And Councillor Dudas asked my question about the school service. But I'd like to just further ask about the time slots, because it's regular bus services that get used for bringing kids to school, but it's those time slots in the early morning and after school. And if there's a bus missing, it's really problematic. Are we putting, our lens on that? Because I have had reports of missing buses at those crucial times, and I just want to know if that's a focus, because it's regular bus routes like number 51 and others. 85 is a biggie, and they're really important to get those kids to school, mostly grade 7 and 8 in high school.
Thank you for the question. Definitely, for sure. The school trips, they're numbered differently. So those are prior in the TOC, but it is a bit of a balance, right? We look at those routes that are very, very busy. Those tend to be the ones with high frequency. The higher frequency routes sometimes are the ones that have more canceled trips. But at the same time, there's a reason why there's high frequency. It's because there's so much ridership there. We do look at those routes those regular routes that service the schools, and try to minimize those impacts as well. But, given the challenges that we faced, post the summer and into, the first couple of weeks, there has been impacts, and our issue has been trying to spread that out as much as possible so that we're not, overly challenging one route and one group of customers more than others. But, there's a handful of routes that we know that really service those school routes, the 85, the 88, a few of the other ones. And in those ones, our control center also does try to prioritize and triage those as best possible as well.
Great, thank you. Really pleased with the TAP system. This is something we've been talking about for a long time, back when I was on Transit Commission, and I'm glad to see it come out. I hope we're going to get statistics to see how it works, and it'll take a little while, obviously. I'd be very curious because I suspect that single use would go up a lot, and it give people an opportunity to, just use it over and over again once they find out how easy it is. I think simplicity helps so much. I mean, we've been able to, buy a coffee with a tap for so long, and just jumping on a bus, it will certainly free people up. When would be the earliest that we would have some statistics on it? And not pushing, just wondering when that would be brought forward.
Mr. Chair, we collect those statistics continuously, and we can provide them on whatever frequency and you'd prefer.
Okay.
Like we have them, we look at them every day, so it's up to you.
Yeah, I think that would be very welcome. I also want to know if we're seeing any increases in the community and equity pass. And by the way, I appreciate very much that we're freezing again, so there's no increases in those fares. It's a great decision. I just want to see if the uptake is there and how we can promote it for those who qualify but aren't using it, and what's being done to promote it for both the two of them.
So, Mr. Chair, I don't have any statistics at hand on how many people are using it, nor do I have information on how many people who are eligible for it are signing up and using it. But we will see if we can get those and bring those to the commission another time. As for encouraging people, we are in continuous cooperation with advocacy groups for people who represent people in these circumstances, with for instance, OCH, when people are living in one area, we'll go and do clinics with them. We'll coordinate ourselves with other social outreach to get the information out about these opportunities as much as possible. And Lisa Bishop Spencer has a few more words on exactly this point.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just earlier this morning, Madam Amilcar mentioned in her presentation that within the context of our Return to Transit campaign, we are incorporating messaging regarding the community pass in order to ensure that those who have the ability to access it are know about it. So that has been incorporated into the plan. Thank you.
Great. Are we simplifying the application process? Is it still a paper process, or are we looking at moving it online?
Mr. Chair, we've made it as simple as it can be to respond to the policy direction of the Transit of Council.
Okay, is that something that could be done in the future? Here we are doing TAP, everything else, and financial information can be checked online. I mean, CRA's online, everything. So is it possible that we could have it so that people could apply online? Is that something that a direction that could be given?
Mr. Chair, perhaps we could speak more with the councillor offline, understand her suggestions better. If she's suggesting that the policy requirements of council be relaxed, we could look at that possibility. Anything we can do within staff authority we have done, but we're happy to check to see if there's anything more we can do to make this process at once easier, but still auditable and secure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy to chat. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lowe.
Thanks, and apologize for going back on the speakers list. Just want to touch on the fare cap. that's coming soon. I'm gonna imagine that's gonna come with some sort of education / communications campaign, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's already in process.
Okay, and was there an approximate rollout date for that?
That was, it was September 7th.
So
Yeah, it was
that was
Thursday.
part of it. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, one thing that I do want to suggest is that there are some places that clearly tell their customers that when you know, if you want to take advantage of the fare cap, you have to use the exact same method that you tapped with. So I hope that's something that would be communicated. That's it. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, yes, that is certainly part of the message we've been giving for several months now.
On that, maybe just clarify that the fare capping is for credit card or e-wallet, not yet for Presto.
That's correct. That is correct. And it's, as Madame Amilcar mentioned earlier, it is implemented with slightly different technology on conventional buses and train stations than it is on Paratranspo buses. So there's little nuances there, which we explain to customers.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we have any more questions from committee members. I have a couple of questions. At our last Transit Commission meeting in June, you were able to give us the breakdown of ridership on trains and buses compared to pre-COVID. I think it was 43% on the train and in the high 70s on buses. Do you have any updates you can share with us today?
Mr. Chair, I don't have any updates, but it looks like similar as we had previously, but we can come back for sure.
Okay, I think it'd be interesting to see also when we get our September reporting with back to school and other with more ridership. On the OSTA, the Ottawa Student Transportation Authority, could staff just give us a quick overview of how you are working or cooperating with OSTA to address some of their yellow bus shortages?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. We work closely with both OSTA representing the two English language school boards and with the CTSO representing the two French language school boards. We work with them rather continuously, but we're working several months ahead of time as they both predict and tally how many people they will have traveling to each of their schools, how they're intending to help those people to travel, whether it's by buying them mostly Transpo fares or supplying them with a yellow school bus. They talk about that with us. We engage with them based on how many resources we have, how many operators, how many buses that council's given us in the budget to respond to these needs. For this year, they requested an increase, and that was part of the budget decision by council going back at the beginning of the year. So council approved putting a certain number of additional buses in service, hiring a certain number of additional operators, which was to be offset and is being offset by the additional fare revenue from these customers. And that additional service began this month. And the same process will go on for next year if more needs are identified by those two school transportation authorities. And that's the sort of the annual process, the look ahead several months in advance. But then there's the tactical month to month, week to week, day to day, and also the request for us to, in past years, do things to help them with short-term problems or particular gaps that have developed over time. And that we manage that from a number of angles. As Troy mentioned earlier, there's continuous discussion among all of our team as we respond to the situation that's out there. With if there's a few more people traveling to that school or a few fewer traveling to that school, we'll usually make some changes. If there's more traffic congestion going to that school, we might have to start that bus a few minutes earlier. We've got changes we're discussing with the school board already for possible capacity and reliability enhancements for coming up in January. And also, we also support the school boards and the school transportation authorities by selling them what's really, we call it a single ride voucher. It's like what used to be considered a bus ticket. We sell these to the school boards. They can issue them to the students, and they can use them to pay their fare on OC Transpo if they're not issued a Presto card.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm glad that OC Transpo is engaged with OSTA. It's a huge concern and impact for families right now. Councilor Menard earlier had a direction about compensation, and question about compensation is difficult right now due to our deficit that we're going to be talking about in just a moment on the next item. We also have our long-range financial plan for transit. We're getting an update on Monday, and we're entering into our budget season. There's one other number that I'd like to have just so we can consider it in our budget conversations, which is some level of free trains when line 2 and 4 are fully launched. Once we're past a bedding in period, once it's fully running, which at this point sounds like 2024. So I don't know if staff need a formal direction, but I think that an estimate for that cost for line 2 and 4 on their own, as well as line 1 as part of some kind of an introductory period, so we can have that to consider at our budget meeting in November.
Sure, Chair. I don't think we need a direction, so we'll make it happen.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, any more questions? Oh, Councillor Leeper, your hand's up.
Since we're asking for data, I know I was going to put this in an email, but I am wondering how much, if we can get a specific breakout of the cost to taxpayers of shifting the proposed fare increase, the 2.5% fare increase, to the levy. I think the number you gave us earlier was, $15 million a month. Sorry, that's for free. Can you please provide members of the commission with the real and relative numbers associated with shifting the proposed revenue increase from increasing the fares to the levy?
I can respond. So it adds about $3.8 million, and we can do that math and get it.
I'm wondering, I can do the math, but could you send us that math? I just want to make sure we're all working on the same page.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Brockington.
Thanks, Chair. Just to piggyback on your question, and this may be more appropriate for the LRT subcommittee, but given the Chilliam line is partially runs through my ward, some questions I've been asking LRT Phase 2 staff is the plan for when it opens, the type of marketing and outreach, and what the plan is to introduce the lines. We talked about mailings, whether it be specific neighborhoods or citywide, like we did for line 1, whether there would be a period where we want to encourage people to at least come on the system, so it would be free for a weekend or a greater period. And again, if it's better parked at LRT subcommittee, great. But as we get closer to the launch date, I'm still unclear within my committee what we're doing to promote this brand new line. So any information would be great.
Thank you, Chair. Lisa shared the campaign plan, the marketing plan. Maybe you can just summarize, and we can talk to you offline for sure.
Certainly, the marketing plan involves ensuring that our messaging is distributed across various networks, particularly networks impacted by the line opening and the ones that are closest to that line opening. That will include some direct to home messaging, as well as messaging, of course, through social and other advertising channels. I can provide specific information a little bit closer to the date once those marketing plans are firmed up. We did launch it at one of the last meetings, one of the last TC meetings, but we were still trying to iron out some of those last details. So as soon as those details become available, we can bring them back to this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm seeing no more questions. Going once, going twice. Okay, So we'll conclude this item. Thanks very much, staff, for the update and for answering our questions. We're going to move on to item 6.1, which is the 2023 Transit Operating and Capital Budget Q2 Status Report. We don't have a presentation, but we do have one speaker registered, John Reddens, and I think he has joined us online. We'll just bring him into the panelist room here. John, I can see you're in the room here, but I don't think you've unmuted. Okay, we're having a technical issue with Mr. Reddin's connection, so we may be able to come back to him. So let's go ahead with any questions from committee members and councillors to staff on the Transit Operating and Capital Budget Status Report. Well, maybe if I could start. I know we don't have a presentation, but there is a projection of quite a large deficit, and the staff notes a number of mitigation measures that are being employed to close that gap in the second half. Can we get a little bit more information? The staff report has some high-level information. Can we get some additional information about the mitigation measures?
You want to go, Isabel?
I thought Pat had the details. So he has a lot of the numbers. Did you want to?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Renee and Isabel. As a little bit of background, you'll have seen in the report that the primary source of the deficit in the first half of the year is that we've not yet received the expected reimbursement from the province. The next after that was, as you saw earlier, that fare revenue is to this point lower than budgeted by a smaller amount. And offsetting that, we've also had some pretty significant cost savings in the first half of the year by being very cautious on spending in every area. We've identified potential ways to reduce or close the gap in the second half of the year if in the unlikely event that the provincial funding is not required. So the primary task of everyone at the city right now is to continue to seek that reimbursement of our COVID-related costs from the province and the federal government, as we've had in previous years, and every other municipality in the country, I think, is likely to say is pursuing the same thing. But to be cautious, we have frozen spending in a number of areas. We've identified a number of vacant positions, which we've selectively not filled, kept them open where we can do that without reducing service quality. We have put a hold or just delayed some capital spending so that if we need to return that capital money to the reserve rather than completing some projects, we would do that and ask for that authority in a future year. We don't have O-Trains line 2 and 4 open yet. You know, the 23 budget had the money allocated for that operation to start at the 1st of September. That didn't happen. So we don't know when that line will be ready to open, but we do save about $2.6 million a month in payments to Transit Next for every month that the line's not open. And then we're just watching what's in the transit operating reserve that might be useful or needed to to close the budget at the end of the year. But it's still there's a method mapped out, but how to do that exactly would be a recommendation to council with the year-end closure, which I believe happens shortly after the end of the year.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So in the second half, you implemented realized some cost savings, some additional budget pressures. You implemented in the first half measures to try to control that or reduce the deficit. You've now implemented additional measures. So when we see our Q3 report, is it likely that deficit is still going to be at 40 million, or will there be a significant shrinking in that forecasted deficit as we get to our next quarter?
I think we don't know for sure quite yet, but we're going to see. I mean, the biggest thing will be, when do we receive that reimbursement from the provincial government or the federal government? And when that money comes in, whether it's this quarter or in Q4, that's what will close the gap.
And I can add that we have not included yet in the forecast the delay in line 2. So that would be reflected as that materializes.
Okay, thank you. I'll let colleagues go. Councillor Brockington.
Sorry, what is the reimbursement for again? Maybe I missed that.
Chair, normally we have anticipate the payment for the launch of Trillium Line. So because now we know that the open will be delayed, so we won't need to pay it this year. So each month we don't move forward with the Trillium Line. It's money that we don't need to give to TNEX.
Okay. In the report, though, it says $30 million in SRA funding budgeted to be received from senior levels of government. What am I missing?
Yeah, we continue to advocate for those dollars, and if we don't, the list that Pat went through are the things that we're going to use to mitigate against that.
So to the chair's question, our proposed deficit has been around 39 million for almost a year now, for 2023. So if we're taking mitigation measures throughout the fiscal year, why is this proposed deficit not coming down? Do you wait until the end of the year to see how it all balances out and then we see what the number is? Or if we're saving money throughout the year because we're not hiring staff, we're not paying RTM, RTG, why is that proposed deficit number not coming down?
So part of the mitigation is also delaying and deferring some of the capital. And so if we can recover some of those funds, we would love to do that, not have to do that.
Fair enough. So again, to the chair's point, when we see Q3 numbers, will that proposed deficit number be down, or is it all dependent on when we get payment and when we actually start realizing savings?
We can show either. It'll be part of the budget tabling. We show the forecast to the end of the year. That will be the Q3 results.
And then if we don't balance, how do you balance the fiscal year?
With the deferrals.
All the other stuff. Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Brockington covered a lot of what I wanted to ask. So I know that staff are advocating for that funding from the provincial, at least the provincial government, and maybe even the federal government. I think it's just provincial. Anyway, so what does I know you have mitigations in place in case that money never comes, but how do staff feel right now in terms of the likelihood? I know you can't speak for the province, but like there's certainly, you're certainly expecting or feeling that it may or may not come, or even partially, right?
That's why we're prepared with mitigation measures.
And then other than mitigations, are there any other things that can kind of maybe raise some more funds? I'm not talking about like, fare increases or service cuts, but more creative things like, taking advantage of the fact that we're the largest rolling billboard in the city, or partnerships with private corporations for naming rights, things like that.
Mr. Chair, we're looking at all of those things as possibilities. And some of them moving ahead with, there's some sponsorship and some advertising that's more than usual that's moving ahead. I don't think we have all the details yet or all the contracts signed, though.
Okay, great, thanks.
Councillor Menard?
Thanks very much, Chair. Well, I hope the federal government does step up with some more operational funding. I know during the pandemic, that was the first time they offered some operational funding in their history. Traditionally, it's been capital-based funding, and I know that they've been in talks with FCM to get this type of operational funding off the ground. So I understand we need to project, exactly what we're experiencing here, which is a deficit, and the difficulties that we have in maintaining the system. At the same time, though, the 2.5% piece, I think is troublesome. We've had 6.4 in the past, 5 point something, 4 point something in the last 3 years. And so just sticking to the 2.5% on the levy, I don't think necessarily is going to serve us well, because I'm not sure how much the provincial government or federal government will really come through for us. Let's hope it's there. But I wouldn't bank on it. So to say we're only going to increase it 2.5%. Again, I think we need a big shift in the city, Chair, and it's not going to happen with just the minor tweaks or slow cuts here and there, or bus route reductions, the route review. This is stuff that we need a big shift in thinking, and this is not going to change without a large shift in thinking about how we do this. A lot of families out there would be willing to pay a greater transit level fee, even if they have one person taking a bus every month. It saves them money to have that on their tax levy. Saves them a lot of money, right? Just like a U-Pass saves students a lot of money. But everybody paying in a joint service that we provide, just like libraries, where everybody pays. Not everyone uses them the same, but everybody pays into it. So the shift in thinking has to happen here, or we're going to be stuck in this rut for a very long time, in my view. But I've been saying that for many years. I do want to ask a question, Chair, about the RTG payments to our finance staff, if I can, just because I raised it earlier on. I know we're going to get some more information back, but like traditionally we've been allowed to release these. They've come out in the past. Because I know this report relates to it too, but from the finance perspective, how would those normally be reported, and how often will you be helping to report those figures?
I'm trying to recall when we were reporting them, and I think it was part of the stage 1, stage 2 update reports. So it would be a matter of just including it in that in terms of updates on those payments.
Okay, well, I do look forward to that being included again, because I think it's something we can and should do. Again, public funds, public information. So hopefully that can get resolved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I just ask for additional clarity in the budget report, the Q2 report that's in front of us now, which line item includes the payments to RTG?
So in document 1, the line item that talks about transit service delivery and rail operations, it shows a year-to-date surplus of about 4 million. So it would include the impact of that. It's a net number of operating costs and reduced payments.
Okay, thank you. So it's rail ops is one of several items that are included in that line. Yes. And then when we get to budgeting in November, are the specific RTG payments separated out in their own line, or are they lumped into that transit services delivery and rail ops line?
They are not separate. They are part of the operating costs.
Is that something that could be listed as a distinct line item, or as in some way indicated in our budget reports going forward?
I could take that away.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the budget report? I feel like we're kind of on a tightrope here, where we've got at the end of the first half, we've got a $40 million deficit. And I think we all know we cannot end the year with a $40 million deficit. That's not something you can backfill with rating from reserves. It's just not possible. But I appreciate staff are taking opportunities to find savings, and the tightrope is waiting for that funding from the federal government as to whether or not we enact some more substantial capital deferrals and so on. So it's kind of a wait and see, but clearly we can't end the year with a $40 million deficit, but there is a plan to close that gap. So we'll continue to watch and look forward to any updates in the coming months. Okay, John Reddens is back online, I believe. technical issues, I think, have been resolved, and he had signed up to speak on this item, and I want to give him that opportunity before we move on. So, John, if you are, there you are.
I'm
Welcome.
here.
Good morning.
Thanks. I have one general question too. On the capital side of it is the Paratranspo bus. It was approved for 80 buses this year. Has that number decreased? I don't understand the reporting that now the number has changed to 71. So I just wanted some clarification on how many buses are actually being ordered here.
So, John, if we can park that question, because we do have an item coming up about Paratranspo bus procurement. So if we could park that question, and we're going to get some more information. I think it's item 7.2, so right after our next item.
And another item I brought to you in an email is the governance. Where is the governance of the volunteers? We were talking about you got rid of the commissioner at the start of the term, and here we are at budget time, and you don't have any input from the volunteer group that wants to represent transit.
On the advisory, so on the advisory committee, I'll let staff answer. Can you give us an update on where we're at in terms of recruitment and formation of the transit advisory group?
That's coming along. We are still waiting for, I believe all of the advisory committees are still waiting for some word from the clerk's office in terms of the composition of that committee. We've submitted, as you know, our ideas for the composition of that committee, and so we're just waiting for some final confirmations before we go ahead with that.
2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I know you're registered for the next item on demand transit, so stand by for that as well. Okay, on the 6.1, the transit operating capital budget Q2 report, is this report received? Received, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 7.1, on-demand transit service, demonstration pilot project and analysis of future expansion. And we do have a presentation for this one from Matthew Wolstenholme on staff.
Chair, Matt is a little bit nervous. It is his first time, so bear with him.
Welcome. We're all pretty excited about this one, so. Let's go.
Okay. Bonjour à tous. Je m'appelle Matthew Wolstenholme.
Hello, I'm Matthew, and I'm a manager at service planning with OC Transpo.
Project has progressed since the last time we brought this to you to talk about the proposed service area, the demonstration pilot project, and to touch on next steps for the project and possible service expansion. Next slide, please. So let's take a moment to recap and familiarize ourselves with on-demand transit service. So on-demand is one of the 22 strategic initiatives documented in the Transit Services 5-year roadmap, which we brought to you earlier this year. We were required to assess on-demand transit as part of the Safe Start Agreement funding from the provincial government in previous years. On-demand transit service provides transit service that responds to customers' needs in real time. And on-demand transit service is being used or explored by several Canadian transit systems following the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this has been mainly to address service in lower ridership areas and or at less busy times of the week. As an example, both Calgary and Edmonton have launched on-demand service post-pandemic to boost flagging ridership, and a local-ish and very successful example of on-demand transit is Belleville Transit, who commenced a pilot back in 2018, so very much pre-pandemic, at weekends and evenings when ridership was low and did not warrant a fixed route service. Their service is still going strong today. Next slide, please. So with the demonstration pilot project, our intent is to demonstrate and test how on-demand service would work as an integrated part of the OC Transpo network. There'll be no increase to operating costs. The software and support services are provided by Pantonium with federal grant support from Sustainable Development Canada. Operating costs of the minibuses used in the pilot service will be offset by on-demand transit replacing fixed route service. The pilot project will use existing minibuses and operate on the weekends only. It's important to note that there will be no negative impact to Paratranspo service. And as a reminder, of the 80 minibuses in our fleet, only 44 are required to meet weekend service demands. We do plan on this service hitting the street in late fall 2023, and possible expansion, depending on the results of the pilot, could begin in 2024. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at some of the benefits we expect to see from the implementation of on-demand transit. We anticipate shorter wait and travel times. We anticipate increased ridership and operational efficiencies. We anticipate improved service reliability and customer satisfaction. And importantly, we also anticipate reduced environmental impacts. And based on a comprehensive peer review, these are all benefits that other agencies that have implemented on-demand transit are currently seeing. Next slide, please. So now we'll touch on the proposed service area for the demonstration pilot project and the criteria that we used in its selection. The preferred area for the pilot project was selected by evaluating areas across the entire urban transit area. And it considered areas where transit service operates every 30 minutes or less, areas where walking distances are longer than the 10-minute walk specified in current transit service design policy. It considered areas with limited connections to key transfer stations and other major destinations, such as shopping centres and hospitals, and areas that had times of day with comparatively low ridership to other times of the day. Also considered areas that are new and have some travel demand, but do not yet have a high enough population to warrant conventional transit service. And we also considered areas with existing transit service that do not currently meet the minimum financial performance standard. Once this criteria had been applied, we then had to consider whether or not on-demand could be provided in each zone that we were reviewing for the demonstration pilot on a cost-neutral basis. Next slide, please. So following that review, the area that checked all the boxes and was chosen to move forward with for the pilot demonstration project was Blackburn Hamlet, which is currently serviced by Route 28. As you can see from the map on the screen, Blackburn Hamlet in the orange shaded area is fairly self-isolated from the rest of the transit network, which does lend itself well to this type of service provision. As part of the demonstration pilot project, Route 28 would be removed on the weekends, replaced by on-demand transit, and the costs saved by removing Route 28 will be reallocated to the on-demand pilot service. So if we take a look at the map on the screen, effectively customers will be able to travel within the orange zone to and from the bus stops that you can see there in orange, or to and from Blair Station. It's important to note as well at this point that Route 25, which is just outside the area on Innis Road, will not be affected by the demonstration pilot project. Next slide, please. So at this point, let's take a look at how the service will work. But I should add, at the moment, we are currently working through many details, so this is very much a high-level overview. Customers wishing to use the on-demand service will book a trip by using a smartphone application, by using an online web browser on their PC or laptop, or by calling our customer service center and speaking to one of our customer service agents. After that, customers will receive confirmation of their pickup timeframe and location, which will be their nearest bus stop. So if we remember the previous slide, one of those orange dots, or at Blair Station. Customers will then proceed to their pickup location, board the bus, and pay the fare. And that can be cash, Presto, or auto payment. All trips will begin or end in the service area or at Blair Station. And we also anticipate that on-demand service will make regular scheduled stops at Blair Station where customers can walk up to service. In this case, the bus operator would book the trip for them. Next slide, please. So with regards to implementation, right now we have a comprehensive staff working group that's working through all the operational and logistical elements, working very closely with our software provider, Pantonium. Naturally, we'll be working very closely with the ward councillor and her staff to take into account local considerations and to develop a rollout comm strategy for area residents. And we will, of course, come back and advise council and commission members when the pilot project is ready to begin. Further, we'll provide information for OC Transpo customers through all our usual channels. Next slide, please. So with regards to future expansion, parallel to the pilot study, we're working hard to identify other locations where on-demand service could be provided. And this will include, in addition to our previous stated criteria, areas where service is currently available, but with low ridership, new areas where transit service is not yet provided, or areas where only a limited service is provided at certain times of the day. Recommendations for future expansion will be made to the Transit Commission, and it will consider both the results of the demonstration pilot project and the findings from the ongoing bus route review. Right now, the pilot is assessing weekend service. However, the expansion to Monday to Friday service would require the acquisition of additional minibuses to the fleet. And as you'll be aware, a separate report on today's agenda recommends funding to allow the purchase of 10 minibuses for an expanded on-demand service. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much for the presentation. We do have John Reddens, who's registered as a speaker. So we'll go to John first, and then we'll go to questions from councillors. So we'll get John into the panelist room.
I'm here. I haven't left. Are you ready, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, John. Welcome.
Thank you again. First question I had was brought up. The previous thing was, how many actual pair of buses are going to be used for this? And do you foresee a problem with the union? Because union drivers are lesser paid than conventional drivers, and the problem is, who's going to be driving these buses? On weekend service, we have the same demand for Paratranspo customers as we do on a weekday, but less drivers. Frustration part about it is you bring dignity into this question of on-demand service. We've been asking this for years for on-demand service. You have Sally there and Kyle Humphrey could tell you, we've been pushing this, and then you brought this up. How do you think we feel about it? We're ticked. We're really ticked because it shows how much dignity and care do you have about Paratranspo customers. Now, the smartphone app, there's another one. Our smartphone, we don't have a smartphone app. We have an online booking. When are we going to get our smartphone app? You see where I'm coming from? you're throwing mud in our face. Every time. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Are there any questions from committee members for Mr. Evans? Okay. I know there's some questions perhaps that you've raised that committee members are going to ask staff, but I don't think we have any specific questions for you, John. Thank you for joining us. We will move to questions for staff, and Councillor Carr, you're the first one with your hand up.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. Appreciate it. And thank you, Mr. Reddens, for your delegation. I did have some of the questions that Mr. Reddens raised will form part of my questions. Obviously, as the Accessibility Advisory Committee Council Liaison Rep, I was concerned reading the media report about any impacts to Paratranspo. And I was wondering, in the presentation that was presented and in the material that I reviewed, I wanted to ask a few questions. Specifically, it's noted that you have 80 Paratranspo buses, only 44 are in use in the weekends. If you could answer if we've ever needed more than 44, if demand wasn't acceptable for the service level. Also, one thing that wasn't addressed in the report was whether or not Paratranspo customers could actually take advantage of this on-demand service themselves. Will they be able to use the replacement for Route 28? Will Paratranspo customers be able to use it as a service for themselves? Will it be equipped to take them as well? Because I could see an advantage to on-demand in terms of improving accessibility. And I noted when you presented the advantages of on-demand, you didn't, although there's an accessibility section in the report, accessibility wasn't specifically mentioned. If you can answer those questions first. I have more as well.
So, Chair, it's a great question. Of course, customers with disabilities are accepted across the entire OC Transpo network, and that will be the case as well with the on-demand transit project.
So just to clarify, they will be able to basically have the same day booking on that particular route, the same advantages as every other customers?
That's correct.
Okay. And with respect to the 44 buses that are only required for Paratranspo for the rest of the city, everything except for that route, do you ever experience demand beyond the 40, are you currently meeting acceptable service levels for Paratranspo on the weekend right now?
Mr. Chair, we have for several years carried like a 99.99, I don't know the exact number, but it's extremely high of all trip requests in the entire year. Usually we end a year where we weren't able to accommodate like single digits of trip requests out of hundreds of thousands that come in. We do meet, we provide all the service that's needed by the customers who are asking for trips. And if there's ever a need to increase service capacity at a certain time, we do. So that use of 44 buses on weekends is based on ridership demand.
Okay, excellent. I'm hoping that when we report back on the pilot, when we report back on all on demand, that we can report specifically back on accessibility and impacts to Paratranspo and improvements or anything that's happened to the system. When you did your presentation, and thank you very much for that, you spoke about the fact that there was a number of areas that were evaluated that had a high enough population to warrant this service. Can you speak about how many areas specifically were warranted before you chose Blackburn Hamlet?
So, Chair, our initial review, and this work has been ongoing for maybe a year or so. Our initial review assessed maybe 20 areas, and then we got into more detail on 5 areas that were taken forward for further analysis with that detailed criteria.
Okay, thank
Chair,
you.
if I may. Yeah, sorry for that. We have to understand that we absolutely need to move forward with the pilot because we want to make sure that it will work and we can come with an alternative to customers. So we know that we are very close to finish our route review, and will represent for sure the entire result to the Transit Commission. And we would like to be able to say, okay, maybe we don't need we don't need a 40-foot buses there, but we would like to have on-demand service there. But to be able to do so, we have to make sure that that will work here. So that's why Hamlet was a good sample for us, because it's with no, we won't need any. We don't need any money to be able to move forward with that, because we actually give the service. We have a huge bus, we have bus operators, so we will just switch them to the on-demand service to see if the pilot works. So all the decision moving forward will come here for sure, but we need to be able to start the pilot.
Understood. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's actually a seniors residence on that road as well. And I'm hoping that there'll be some I think it's Bearbrook Retirement. I hope there'll be some targeted communications to that particular group, because I know in other jurisdictions where on-demand has been rolled out, it's been advantageous to seniors residents. Just a couple of questions on operational aspects of the pilot. It didn't specifically mention the hours that it would be operating on the weekend. Will it be the same as the Route 28, or will there be extension of hours? And one, you mentioned about 2023 and then perhaps expanding in 2024, but exactly how long do you think the pilot will roll out for? And then one thing in terms of contacting, you can do it online or through an app, but will you have an actual phone at Blair, like an on-demand phone that can be used when people, they can pick it up to use on the return trip, if that makes sense? That's something that's being looked at. And also it talks about using your call center, and I can understand in the pilot period that's how we do use it, but as you go forward, would you have a more direct contact for on-demand service? I kind of just threw 4 questions in there.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Councillor, the hours of service will be the same as the current Route 28. We anticipate the pilot will run till at least the middle of next year, because that's how long our contract runs with our software provider. We will know well in advance of then as to whether or not the pilot will be extended or future zones will come online. With regard to the phone at Blair Station, we're currently working through those logistical and operational aspects through our working group. So I can't answer that right now, but we'll definitely take that away for consideration.
Okay, excellent. I'll leave that for now. I'm very optimistic about this. I think I'm a strong believer in the fact that you actually can deliver better, more efficient service that meets a broader range of people and save money at the same time. I know that's not always a popular opinion, but I believe that it can happen, and I'm optimistic about this, but I do want to make sure that we continue to report back and make sure that there's no impacts to our accessibility community. I think that's going to be really important, and if we can get better service out of this, I think it's really important, and look forward to following this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. One of the points that were raised by the public delegation was actually really good. Has there ever been, did the union ever raise any concerns about I believe it was going to be a conventional operator on a para bus? Is that correct?
Chair, we are conducting discussion with the union on that, and we are working with them.
Okay, thank you. And I hope if it is a conventional operator, I do hope that all the appropriate training is there, because the equipment is slightly different. I'm sure you know that. I didn't need to say that. The other question I have is about the walk-up service at Blair Station. Is that a minibus parked at stop B, or is it going to be stationed somewhere else at the station where the customer can walk to?
So, Chair, Councillor, we're currently working through what that might look like with our software provider, whether it's scheduled trips in the software so the bus passes by at a certain time, or whether we do stage the bus there at the busier times of the day. So we're still working through that with our working group.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, I do share Councillor Carr's optimism for this project, and this opens up a lot of possibilities in terms of bringing service to new areas, bringing service to rural areas, or even trying out overnight service one day. So, it's a great way to increase service availability, which is sometimes something more than what people might seek, instead of just a bus that goes by at a fixed time. So, thanks.
Councillor Menard.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just following up on the conventional operators versus para operators, is there some current thinking of who is going to operate those buses is starting fairly soon. So what is the current thinking of who's actually going to operate the vehicles?
Chair, we're still in discussion, but frankly, I think a conventional bus driver can do that job, and because if we don't need the service one day, so we can use him for another conventional bus. So we won't. It's not an issue for us because we are discussing with the union, and we don't anticipate any problem with that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. With regard to my colleague's comment about opening up other transit areas for service, is it anticipated? I know we're going to see an urban transit area expansion with the area A based on other service being operated. And I'm wondering if this is the type of thing that would open up that type of area, the UTA, in some of those areas with regard to this service in the future.
Mr. Chair, this is, it's in large extent, as we called it, a demonstration pilot project. It's largely a learning experience for us as well as for customers, a different type. But for us, it's how will this work, and where can this be applied in a big city? We look to the examples of Calgary, where they're using on demand on newly developed areas on the fringe of the city, or Edmonton, where they're using it more to fill in gaps in a big grid, particularly to areas where there's a lot of seniors. And just, how will it work? How does it integrate in the complete system? What kind of ridership do we see? So it's early yet to draw conclusions about what the results will be, but we will be looking to see if this is the appropriate solution for places like Arcadia, places like Barhaven East, places like Stonebridge or Stonehaven, the one that's to the south, places like Manotick, places like Carp Road, outside the urban area. It's not going to be the solution for Montreal Road, Bank Street, Merivale Road, but it might be the solution for other defined pockets within either the urban or the rural parts of the city.
Okay, I'll wait for more information on that. And just on the changes, I know you did say at some point, I'm trying to recall the timing, but the changes to the urban transit area A and B, when are those coming again? Is that 2024 you had mentioned?
Our plan is that the report to recommend the expansion of the urban transit area to match the boundaries of the urban area as defined by the provincial government will come to this committee along with budget in November.
In November of 2023. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Leeper.
Thanks. I was intrigued with respect to the potential that the minibus service or the on-demand service will also be able to assist people who have been in the accessibility community who have been looking for on-demand service as well. I think we've had a number of questions around the training of the operators, though. In order to operate Para, I'm assuming that there was some higher level of training that's required just to know how to navigate specialized pieces of equipment in and out of the bus. Will the on-demand driver have the necessary level of training to be able to provide the same level of service as a Para driver?
Yeah, yes, the operators will be fully trained and able to do that.
That's good. I don't know how much detail to get into this morning. I think I would have enjoyed seeing a greater level of detail about what the baseline is for this pilot today, just to understand what the potential efficiencies could be. We're taking it for granted that there are efficiencies, and given that this is only a certain limited geography, those efficiencies are going to be limited. But I'm wondering if you have baseline metrics with respect to how much fuel is used in the course of a weekend on this route, how many kilometers are driven. I assume the operator cost won't be any different to have the on-demand service versus the conventional service. So I don't know how much cost savings we expect to see from this.
So, Mr. Chair, we are neither expecting new costs nor cost savings from this demonstration pilot project. We are working on this on the basis that it is cost neutral, that it is doable within the current budget, within the current service hours, within the current resource reallocation for that service. What we learn from this demonstration pilot project and what we find through our other research will inform any future recommendations we give to the Commission on whether this is a more cost-effective way or a more attractive way for customers to provide transit service. If we can provide the same quality of service for customers at a lower cost, if we can provide a better quality of service for customers for the same cost, those are both potential benefits that we'd bring to you.
Okay,
but we're not expecting cost savings out of this demonstration pilot project.
I think we would see cost savings over a much larger geography and over a larger number of routes over time,
depending on a lot of aspects, depending on ridership levels, depending on capacity of the vehicles, depending on us assigning the right vehicle type, calibrating how we group trips together. There's a lot of software levers here to consider, and one of the main ones is for us to use buses of an appropriate size, neither too small nor too big.
Right.
Too small would mean we'd have to run too many trips to carry a fixed number of customers. Too big, and we're tying up a lot of capital.
Okay. So will we get baseline measures or information back? When we get the information back on the pilot, I'd like to see how long do people wait from the moment they make a request to the moment when the bus picks them up and then gets them back to Blair. So more data will help us make a better decision when it's comes time to assess the results of the pilot. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kitts.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was surprised to see Blackburn Hamlet be chosen. No disrespect to Blackburn Hamlet. Councillor Dudas knows I love that community. But one of the criteria that you outlined was new areas that have some travel demand, but not yet have a high enough population to warrant conventional transit service. Blackburn Hamlet's not, I would not define that as a new area or even a growing community. So I was just wondering if you could elaborate on that.
Yes, I can, Mr. Chair. So one of the principles of the councillor points out the areas we've identified, but then we were looking to find a place where we could do a demonstration within current budget, where there is service that we can reallocate from one type of vehicle to another, where we have existing ridership that we can compare, see how it increases or how it changes from before to after. If we find that this project is successful and that we have recommendations to expand into new areas, to assign new vehicles, to devote new money to it, there are places in several councillors' wards which would be first on our list of consideration. I will say that one of the things that we'll be looking at very, very closely with Blackburn Hamlet is whether there becomes an opportunity to easily add on to Blackburn Hamlet a little further to the southeast, the Bradley Estates, Renault Road general area, which is another area which is growing and is more isolated from the rest of the transit system than anyone would want it to be.
Wonderful. I'm so happy to hear you say that. Yeah, because I mean, just in comparison, on the weekend, we did some OC Transpo travel planning. Blackburn Hamlet to Blair, you would walk 2 minutes. and then take the 25 for 12 minutes. Bradley Estates, you would walk 5 minutes and then take the 34 for 42 minutes. So, you know, I guess I have concerns that a pilot that operates in an area that has parallel service, you won't see as many conversions. And I want this to work. Like, I really am excited about this. I think we need to see more of this, you know, future thinking from OC Transpo and adapting to technological advances and the changes in the way that we live and work. So, I mean, how are you measuring success of the pilot? Do you have KPIs that you're looking at?
So I think there's a number of them. If largely along the benefits that we've laid out, if we see shorter waiting time for customers, that would be good. If we see shorter travel time for customers, that would be good. If we see more customer satisfaction, that would be good. If we can provide a more reliable service, that would be good. If we see ridership increase, that would be good. And if we find an application in other areas to deliver service at a lower cost, comparable service at a lower cost, that might also be a benefit too. Those are the kind of things we'll be looking at. If those do occur, then we know we're on the right track. If those do not occur, then we know that we have to reformulate some of the principles we're using.
Okay. And within the pilot, is there going to be like a phase 2 of the pilot? Like, at any point, will it, you said, you know, potential to expand to the southeast, but would that be still part of the pilot season, or would that be, you know, once this commission and council makes a decision to move forward?
Mr. Chair, I think we just don't know yet. We would be coming to the commission and council if we were asking for more funding, if we were asking for any change in policy. We do, as you know, have a report coming up after this that is recommending reallocating some funding so that we can pre-buy a number of minibuses to use for this kind of service next year and going forward. We've also got a limited funding from the federal government for the software, and that only goes for a certain block of time. So how we do things, well, you know, what we do as our phase 1 comes to an end, whether we call it a success, whether we go into phase 2, will really depend a lot on what we learn in this upcoming phase.
Okay. And so 44 minibuses being used for para during the weekend out of 65 that run during the week. So it'd be 21, I guess, buses available for the pilot. Are they all being used for Blackburn Hamlet, or would there be sort of potential to, within that envelope, use some of those buses?
No, we're not expecting, Mr. Chair, to use anything like that number in Blackburn Hamlet. You know, we're thinking, you know, 2 or 3, not 20. So we do have that as a potential resource for trials in other weekend areas. But one of the things that was specific to Blackburn Hamlet is that there was a self-contained bus route, Route 28, where we could reallocate operating resources, hours of service, people working, without needing to expend costs to test this out. And the other areas that we looked at, we looked at a lot of areas, but when we got down to our last few, some of them were places where there isn't Sunday service or there isn't full weekend service right now. So there wasn't those resources to reallocate. As we go into future phases, if this proves to be beneficial, then it opens the opportunity that we can get into new service areas sooner than we have been able to in years past. But the other report that's on the table today is to give us the authority to reallocate some money to buy new buses for this, and that would allow us to move into weekdays, which is probably where much more of the demand is in some of these new areas around the city.
Okay. And do you envision, I know it's early days, maybe that's not a fair question, but I was wondering if within the pilot you envision testing during the week, because I think that would be during the week instead of just on the weekend at all, because I mean, I appreciate the constraints of the availability of drivers and vehicles, but I do think that there would be a very different flavor during the week than on the weekend.
Mr. Chair, definitely we want to do that, but we cannot during the pilot project because all of the minibuses that we have are used for Paratranspo service during the week.
Okay.
They're either in service or they're in maintenance to back up the service.
Okay.
So it's the new buses that are on the other report that unlocks the possibility for us to test weekday service.
Okay. You've heard me say this before, going forward with this initiative and the, future potential expansions of the pilot and the route review, I am really imploring OC Transpo to look at opportunity because, I have a growing community that is not well served by transit. And I really think that people in my ward would take transit if it was efficient and accessible and it made sense. So I'm looking forward to new opportunities to bring that service to my community that aren't there right now. Obviously, I was hoping the pilot would be in my ward, but I think this is a great step forward and I really hope to see it succeed. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dudas.
So I'm taking this from a very different perspective because I'm going to be the canary in the coal mine along with my residents. Blackburn Hamlet is in Orleans West Innes, and the 28 is actually my route. It's the route I take, and the 25 is my backup. So I have to say I was surprised when I found out shortly before the report went live that Blackburn Hamlet was selected, but not surprised in a bad way. I think testing it on the weekends in this area will prove to be a good way of measuring success. Blackburn Hamlet residents have typically used transit, have moved away from it for various reasons over the past 10 years or so, and more so over the last 5. Some of it was because of reductions to service levels, and particularly on the weekend. This particular route, while on the weekdays, it funnels through the entirety of the community and touches on different residential streets. On the weekend, it runs up and down Bear Brook, and that's about it. So there's many, many residents who have reached out to me after this was announced, saying that they would consider taking it if it was to come to their street, if it was to be more convenient. But there's also a level of cautious optimism. And I think I'm taking it from that very perspective as well, too, because while many of my colleagues here have talked about, expansion and testing and trying it out and really assessing it for effectiveness, myself and my neighbors will be the ones testing it out. We'll be figuring out and seeing if this actually works. So I have a lot on the line in terms of seeing if this functions, because I also use it to get around my own community. One of the things that I want to also point out, and I'm really leaving this with OC staff and management, is that there are a lot of comments, even during this presentation, about if this happens, this will do it. We don't know about this yet. We're still trying to figure out these aspects. I very much appreciated when, Pat, you approached me and you said that we're going to be working through this together, that there was a level of commitment to working closely with myself and the community to see this as a thoughtful rollout. But I would also stress the need to continue to work with myself and the customers who ride OC Transpo and Blackburn Hamlet throughout the duration of the pilot, so that if the adjustments are needed, we can do it as it's required. Because I would really hate to see that the ridership that we do have are being put out because we're trying something new. And the only other thing that I would want to stress is, and I'm saying this, and Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had this discussion, and Renee, you're there too, is I wanted the full commitment from OC Transpo that if this pilot does not work, that we would revert directly back to the same service level that we currently have with the 28 on the weekends. Because I know personally, from having been through cuts prior to my role on council, that when cuts are done in this community, particularly to this route, we see an even greater loss of ridership. So I would like for OC Transpo management to commit right now and to say that, if this doesn't work, that we go back to the service level that we are currently experiencing with the 28 on weekends, and that there is a commitment to an ongoing willingness to assess the capabilities of this pilot project, to work closely with myself and other riders of the on-demand transit so that we can adjust as needed.
Mr. Chair, the pilot doesn't affect a potential route review or something like that. So it's totally different. We're doing this on-demand service because we want to make sure that what we would like to do with it will work. And we are conducting a process, a strong process with the route review. We'll come back here to the Transit Commission with the result, but there is no way that they will say, okay, if you don't need the on-demand service, you will not have your service anymore. There is nothing there. And even if we don't move forward with the on-demand pilot service, we will come with recommendation based on the route review.
I very much appreciate it. And I have to say, just as a parting comment, Chair, I am excited. Like I am excited about that. I'm going to be using it all the time. So I'm happy to come back to Transit Commission and also speak to my experiences throughout the project. But it's that cautious optimism, right? If I had my choice, it'd be Councillor Kitts or Councillor Carr or Councillor Brock and someone else testing this out. And then I would inherit all the benefits of having a tried and tested project. It's going to be Blackburn Hamlet. We're going to do our best. We'll work our way through it, but I have high expectations for it. And I look forward to working with OC Transpo to see that this is a flawless rollout, or at least as close to as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Dudas. We're excited for you and Innisford. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. This is more of a detailed question on the service itself, and maybe the details that come out later on. But something I realized as we were discussing this, and when Pat mentioned Sunday service, is that the Route 28 follows a very different pattern on Sundays versus Saturdays. So are all the stops in that zone going to be serviced on both days, including the stop at the arena?
Chair, yes, all the stops in the current service area will be serviced on the weekend, and we'll be working with Councillor Dudas's office to identify other locations where we may want to add stops on the weekend to enhance the service coverage area.
Cool, great, thanks.
Councillor Carr.
I'll be super quick since Councillor Brockington's already pointed out, I've already spoken once, but my question came up listening to Councillor Dudas and talking about the fact that maybe this won't be a success. What will happen if it's not a success? You will return to service, but would you try to pilot this in a different area? Like, I guess, at what point, if there's not good take up on it, if it's not producing good results, what will the steps be? Will we try it somewhere else?
Chair, that's why we need to move forward, because I wish that I can answer to those questions, but there is no reason to fail with that, because we're not the first one, right? So we want to make sure that we can deliver a better service with the on-demand service versus the regular service, where we don't have enough ridership to be able to have very good headway. So this is our goal, and again, if we can move forward, sooner we will be able to come back with. I'm sure that will be good news. I'm confident.
Excellent, thanks. I just wanted to ask. Appreciate it.
Okay, I'm seeing no further questions, so we'll need to receive this report. Is this report received? Received. Thank you. Okay, I've had a couple of requests for a quick break, so we will take a quick break because we're almost through our agenda. So let's take 5 minutes and then we'll resume. Let's say 12:40 we'll resume. So quick break. Thank you. All right, we do have quorum. We have everyone we need from staff. So we are on item 7.2, capital adjustment for the purchase of additional minibuses, somewhat related to the last item, but goes beyond that. We had held this item because we have Mr. Reddens registered as a speaker, and there may be some questions from councilors as well. So we'll start by going to John Reddens. John, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to remind folks that September 25th is the Paratranspo customers will be at the Jean Pickett Hall talking about Paratranspo issues with Ottawa Transit Riders Group. Be hosting it. We're renting the hallway out just to bring attention to Paratranspo issues, as well as the confusion about this topic is I know there was 80 buses that were budgeted for the capital this year, and now it's dropped to 71, and then you're talking about 44. Can you give us an exact number of how many buses there are?
Okay, thank you, John, and we'll get staff to answer that in just a moment. And you were referencing the Paratranspo awareness event organized by Ottawa Transit Riders, which is on Monday, September 25th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And councilors received an email about that in the last week or two, so put that in your calendars. Councilor Leeper, I think has a question for staff, but John, I don't see any other questions for you, so thank you for thank you for sharing that. Councilor Leeper, questions for staff?
Thank you. The key consideration for me is how are we going to pay it back? How are we going to fill the kitty back up again? These are challenging times, and I'm really nervous about that one.
Mr. Chair, that will be so paying it back will be part of next year's capital budget recommendations, capital budget allocations. It's important to note that the purchase of buses is largely funded from sources other than property taxes. It's funded from gas tax debt, things like that. So I won't say it's immune, but it's less connected to the questions that were part of the budget directions report than other capital projects are. The issue here, as the report explains, is minibuses are more expensive than we expected them to be with current market pricing. With the amount of money that was already allocated in the 2023 budget, we were able to replace about half the fleet, not all of it. And we're asking for the reallocation of money out of zero emission buses into minibuses so that we can order those minibuses now, this month, to try to get in on the production run that's happening imminently. If we don't order them until next year, they don't come until another year later because the production runs are so tightly defined for this product. The zero emission buses, on the other hand, we have enough money available to place all the purchase orders that we need this year, and what we need for future years, we will ask for in future years.
I am just nervous about deferring that decision about how to replenish the zero emission bus fund. And I would be a lot more comfortable about this decision if we had an identified funding source to put on the table as a recommendation today for the budget, for the creation of the capital budget project for 2024.
In summary, it's the same amount of money. We ask for it. So, building block A, building block B, we're asking to move B over to A so we can spend it this year on need A, and then ask for the replenishment upcoming in the budget later this year. If we were to not do that, we would be asking for the same amount of money, the exact same amount of money in the next budget. But we wouldn't be able to take advantage of the opportunity to order those minibuses now. It would, because that decision wouldn't come for another year. I'm afraid Isabel had to leave, so she's asked me to do my best to answer your questions.
Okay.
And the reason this rises to the commission is because there's no delegated authority from council to reallocate between capital programs. That responsibility rests with council. So it has to be a council decision to move that money. It's not like we would do put a bus shelter here rather than there. This is actually moving money from one capital account to another.
Okay.
So the pressure that we're facing is that the buses are more expensive. And this is a way to get those. So we would have had to ask for that money to buy those buses next year. By doing this little maneuver, we're asking for you to recommend to council that we get authority to move that money around and get that bus order in now so that we can get those new Paratranspo buses a year earlier than we would otherwise and get them maybe during 24 rather than in 25.
Okay.
Which will improve, of course, comfort and reliability for the customers who use those buses, which are aging.
Si je peux aussi, Chair, apporter peut-être une autre nuance, c'est que les 80 minibus.
I put a little nuance here, is that the 84 minibuses that we're using in OC Transpo are all due at the same time. And if we could actually place an order now, and I asked my team to see if we could get them 20 at a time so that we can allow the e-bus prepared, because we want to make them, we want those, minibuses to be electric too. And when we buy some, I don't want to buy 80 in one shot, right? So the faster we can go ahead with this gas-powered minibuses, 20 at a time, because the e-buses are available right now. And then the faster we'll be able to play with the 80 that we have right now in order to make sure that because somebody had asked the question a little while ago that had to do with that. Because for the minibuses for Paratranspo, it's a huge impact but we need to be able to smooth that transition, and we've got one opportunity to do it, and it's now. Oh, okay, great, thank you. And also, can I ask you, Mr. Redmond, to he'd answer Mr. Redmond's questions, because he'd asked a specific number about how many buses?
They're to illustrate different points. And to go backwards and explain where these life cycles come from. The life cycle of Paratranspo buses comes from back when this was a contracted service, and the vendor had to buy new buses every time they got a contract, and the contracts were for X number of years. That's what started these pulses. Now it's a city service that doesn't apply. We can smooth things out, and we will. The last time we bought minibuses for Paratranspo service, we bought 82 of them. 80 of those are still in regular service. 65 of those are used Monday to Friday. 44 of those are used on weekends, according to demand. That's one set of numbers. So we have 80 active minibuses right now. And what we're proposing to do is go to 92, from 80 to 92, with 82 of them being to support Paratranspo service, 10 more being available in case on-demand service is successful, as we expect it will be. But if it is not, they will be identical buses, which can be used on low ridership routes or to bolster Paratranspo service, should that be a decision of council. They'll be perfectly compatible minibuses, but we plan to buy 92 of them. Of those 92, 41 have already been ordered, using all the money that was available in this year's capital authority. We're proposing to buy 51 more, which is 41 for Paratranspo service, 10 for possible expansion of on-demand service, using the money that we're asking you to reallocate from the 40-foot bus account to the minibus account. And of those 51, we intend to buy 2 of them as electric zero emission buses, which we know will have a shorter range, but we can use them in short range purposes, whether that's on Paratranspo or in on-demand service, to get us in the door, to learn more, so that the next order can be, a little bit better informed on what's possible.
Okay. Alors, pour eux qui ont besoin d'une
So for those who need a para service, this is a definite improvement. There'll be more availability for the buses once this purchase has happened. Absolutely, much better than what we have now. Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other questions for staff on this item? All right, then we need to approve the report recommendations. So on item 7.2, capital adjustment for the purchase of additional minibuses, are the report recommendations carried? Carried, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 7.3. This is potential subscription type discount for hybrid workers. We do have a presentation. Rayua Howarth is here. So we'll go to the presentation first, and then we'll go to any questions from committee members. Welcome.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Bonjour à tous. Je présente aujourd'hui.
Hello, everyone, and thank you to everybody. I'm proposing here today a potential fair option for hybrid workers, according to the report that I have submitted. So slides, please. Thank you.
So the backdrop for this new fare proposal is the ongoing decreased ridership and fare revenue from the COVID pandemic. We know, of course, that many office workers are working from home or working a hybrid schedule with a few days in the office per week. The current fare structure doesn't offer a product with a specific financial incentive for hybrid workers. With direction from Transit Commission last April, staff looked into options for a discounted fare product aimed at hybrid workers. Next slide, please. To provide some context, I want to outline the many existing fare products available today for a variety of customer needs. Customers can purchase single ride fares, unlimited passes for 1, 3, 5, or 7 consecutive days, the unlimited monthly pass, which I will note is transferable and can be used by more than one person in a household or in a workplace. Next slide, please. There's also a long list of fare discounts and discounted products for customers in various situations. Seniors travel free on Sundays and Wednesdays and can purchase a monthly pass discounted at about 62% off the adult monthly price. Children aged 12 and under travel free. Youth aged 13 to 19 and school boards can purchase a monthly pass discounted at about 23%. Customers with low incomes can purchase a discounted monthly pass or can pay a single ride fare, both discounted at over 50%. Customers who are receiving ODSP payments can purchase a monthly pass or pay a single ride fare, discounted at about 65% and 53% respectively. Post-secondary institutions can provide a U-Pass to eligible students, discounted at about 44%. And 2 customers traveling together on weekends and holidays can travel unlimited for the price of a single one-day pass. Next slide. So as mentioned by the GM, with the recent launch of O-Payment, customers can now pay their fare by tapping a credit card or mobile wallet. This will also become available for debit cards in the near future. O-Payment applies daily and monthly fare capping, which ensures that customers who make frequent trips are automatically provided the best value. Next slide, please. So we see that the current fare structure provides many products and discounts for a wide array of customer situations and travel patterns. But there is perhaps not a targeted option for the hybrid worker. This would be like an intermediate discount for customers who travel 2 to 3 days per week, but don't quite reach the break-even point for a monthly pass of 34 trips per month. That type of discount may provide an incentive for those customers to return to transit. Staff worked with our vendors to analyze the possible options for this product. We considered that acceptable options had to be readily feasible and compatible with our existing fare technology, as we wanted to avoid complex, drawn out, and expensive system development. Next slide, please. So based on our analysis, we found that with our current technology, we can offer a new paper smart card product, which would be prepaid and sold at a discounted price. The smart card would hold a certain number of trips with a limited period of validity. For example, 12 trips to be taken over a span of 14 consecutive days. The number of trips and the number of days and the price can be set based on direction from council. We can make available just one or many different products of X trips over Y days, with the technical limitation of a maximum of 31 trips. There are a few guiding principles for choosing the product parameters. First, the ticket should not have the same validity as any of the existing unlimited passes, so 1, 3, 5, or 7 days to avoid customer confusion. The ticket, because it's a paper smart card, is meant to be disposable and have short-lived circulation. So we recommend a validity no longer than about 3 weeks. Finally, the ticket shouldn't compete with the current unlimited monthly pass, both in price and validity. The monthly pass gives a 15% discount over the single ride fare to customers who travel every workday or make 40 trips a month. Next slide, please. So how will this product work? Customers would purchase the product at any of our ticket machines, at O train stations, transitway stations, or the OC Transpo office. The product is generally available for purchase, so anyone can buy it, not just hybrid workers. The customer would select the desired multiple ride product. There could be one or many options offered. The validity period begins at the time of purchase. The customer can use their ticket immediately by tapping their card at the fare gate or on the bus reader when they board. So a trip is deducted when the customer taps, except of course when the customer taps again within a transfer window. The reader or fare gate will display the remaining trip balance, so customers can track their remaining trip credits as they travel. They would also be able to check their balance by querying their ticket at the ticket machine. The card will deactivate when all the travel credits are spent or when the validity period ends. A new card would then have to be purchased at the ticket machine. If one of these cards is lost, stolen, or damaged, it can't be replaced. Also, the ticket would not be valid on STO. Customers would continue to use a Presto card or cash if they transfer to STO. Next slide, please. The technical implementation for this product requires software changes to our fare system devices, ticket machines, fare gates, and bus validators. The cost and timeline details are to be determined, but we believe this work could be covered by existing budgets for fare system enhancements and achievable by middle of next year. Next slide, please. It's possible that this new discount could attract new customers, increasing ridership and revenue. It's also possible that this new product will be mostly chosen by existing customers, keeping ridership at the same level, but reducing fare revenue from the sale of higher priced products. Staff could provide forecasts on ridership and revenue changes based on the direction from council for the product parameters. Of course, forecasts can vary from actual results. A funding source would be required to cover the fare discount. I'll mention here that the budget directions report outlines the city's challenging financial situation in funding transit for 2024. This is due to several factors like the lower ridership and fare revenue, operating costs from opening lines 2 and 4, inflation and contract commitments, and so on. To proceed with implementing this new product, however, council direction would be required with the associated funding source identified, and that would normally come as part of the 2024 budget. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. There are a number of hands up for questions. Councillor Carr is first on the list.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for the presentation. I just have a couple of quick questions. As I was reviewing the materials and listening to the presentation, I guess overall, as I'm thinking about the context of the financial challenges that we find ourselves in and sort of looking at programs for, you know, we're hearing a lot today about discounted programs or discounted routes or free routes for individuals. And I think my preference is more to start looking at things from an equity lens where we can help the more vulnerable populations should we start to offer discounts or free transit. So I'm wondering in context of those, you know, do you have any data or any evidence that we would attract more hybrid workers using this sort of fare model, or do you think it's possible, pardon me? Or do you think it's possible to maybe look at expanding another one of your programs? Like, for example, we just started the TAP program for the cards. Like, could we expand that? I'm wondering about the level of staff effort that would be undertaken if we think that that's worth it. But mostly like the data to substantiate getting people back is of interest to me. And I know when Councillor Hill presented this back in April, it was also a different time in the public service where we thought people were for sure coming back 2 or 3 times a week. That has obviously changed because of the way that the PSAC settlement was settled. So just wondering if you could speak to those factors, and I'll probably have some more coherent follow-up questions on that.
Mr. Chair, you know, based on our involvement with other transit agencies around the world and with research that's done at academic and technical and practical levels, we have some understanding of what causes people to choose transit. And for the most part, that's service quality. It's shorter travel time. That's the biggest driver of whether someone will choose transit or not. There was a previous report to a previous term of the Transit Commission where we brought in a consultant who went through a lot of detail on what the different factors are that encourage transit use. And in a relatively, on the North American scale, on a relatively affluent city like Ottawa, where a lot of the people traveling on transit are decently paid office workers downtown, price was not the main driving factor. Service quality and travel time was much ahead of price. For people who are of lower income and restricted means, that's a different story, and clearly their ability to move can be limited by price. But as Ravi outlined, we have a number of discounts already in place to address some of those people's needs. So based on what we know, we can make a prediction of whether a discount would encourage ridership, and we think that a discount will encourage ridership. But a certain discount can be expected to result in a small increase in ridership. We've not identified a way for a discount to provide more fare revenue, though. Right? We can get more customers, but we have to bring those customers in at a lower price, and they don't. So the discount, when the discount would apply to people whether they're using transit already or not, but the new ridership is only the ones who aren't already. The revenue loss comes from people who are already using transit, who we're choosing to give a new discount to. So it's a very narrow window, and we don't have a recommendation for you on that at all, because the reference to us here was, is there a technological way of doing this? Yes, there is.
Okay, thank you for that. I just have a quick follow-up from the presentation. On slide 1, it specifically mentioned downtown. Now, of course, hybrid workers are all over the place. Federal officers are all over the place. Was that just Are you targeting specifically more travel downtown? I'm just wondering why downtown was specifically mentioned on slide 1.
There's no link to the product itself. I think it was just about that most government workers, have ingress downtown in the morning and egress from downtown in the evening.
Okay, I just wondered if there's, some sort of link encouraging it, because of course we've got folks in Gatineau, we do have federal government offices all over the place. So just based on your answer to my questions, Mr. Scrimgeour, is it worth it for staff to go to all this work to do? Like, it doesn't sound to me as if OC Transpo is convinced that this is a discount that is worth it in terms of the work that would need to be to design a separate program, in terms of the expected uptake in ridership. We don't have that data to say, we basically don't think that there would be a fair increase. Like, est-ce que ça vaut la peine?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. My opinion is I don't recommend that. Even if at the beginning of the year, I was one of the people who were saying we have to do something for hybrid workers, etc. But we have seen now, we see that that will not bring more people. And I think I explained very well how generous is the city. So we have a lot of specific fears for people. So I think we should just continue to advocate the monthly pass for users and encourage people to use their credit card now.
Thank you very much. And I'll admit I was very enthusiastic in the beginning when Councillor Hill put it forward, but given the financial situation, given the changes in the federal government return to work policy and the ongoing lack of clarity with respect to that, given, who I hear from the most are more vulnerable users, people that can't get to their routes, that want better access for for their shift work, who are working, like in my ward, for example, at the Pearly from 3 to 11, where they're personal support workers who want to be able to take the bus. It's not an option, or people that are wanting to take shift work in an Amazon warehouse who don't have a car. I don't often hear from a lot of federal public servants. In fact, having spent well over 20 years as one myself, what I hear more is, well, now that I only go to work once a day, I don't mind paying $20 for parking. And that's what I hear anecdotally. So I really appreciate the work that went into this. And I'll let someone else take over for questions. Thank you very much.
Councillor Hill.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I do want to say a big thank you to staff for taking a look at this. I know in the winter when we first looked at this, we're certainly all keen on improving ridership, and certainly that was my interest in this. I know we've heard a little this morning on the discussion of this report about fare revenue versus ridership. And to me, this is identifying an innovative mechanism to try to incentivize more of those folks that were taking public transit to get on public transit, or those that had not ever been on public transit to consider the option when they're only working 2 to 3 times a week, and a monthly pass wouldn't be the right option. I'm not going to advocate on something that staff are not supportive of. So GMML Carr, I'll certainly defer to your comment there. In my opinion, I guess the only question I would ask is one of risk, because whenever you're doing innovative programming, there's going to be a risk of failure. And if there's what's the downside risk, I guess is my question. When I read the report, it said there were no financial implications. So if we were to run this and only see a moderate uptake, is that a net negative for the city? Or is there a potential that we could see, over time, if hybrid work for the federal government or other entities that could potentially use this becomes more ingrained, that this could become something? So I guess, what is your assessment of risk here in terms of could we potentially be worse off by trying to implement this than we are right now?
Mr. Chair, it really depends on what the parameters are, what the policy choice would be, what is the price we would sell it at? What is the level? What is the number of days that the period would extend? What is the number of trips that people would be purchasing credits for? We can run the numbers. But the answer to that question really depends on what those parameters would be. the risk to the city would be that if the discount is so generous as to attract new people, it might be so high as to reduce the revenue from the customers that we currently have. And the worst case scenario, I guess, is that we would bring in so much less money from our current customers that it would not cover the amount of money we brought in from new customers. But I'm not saying that's likely. I'm just saying that is the worst case. And based on any set of parameters, we can certainly run a prediction.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I don't see why we would even consider for a second modeling this on something that would compete with a monthly pass. Like the whole point from the get-go was to give an alternative to somebody that would not otherwise get a monthly pass. So I guess my perspective on this, Chair Gower, would be I appreciate the work that's gone in. We've got a good report here that we can build off of in the future. I'm not going to advocate that we direct staff to incorporate the program going forward if our GM is not supportive of that. But it's something we've got in the back burner in case over time we see something that that could potentially want us to change, or specifically if there are some compatibility issues with technology, so that it's not as complicated as an alternative pass product, or it's something that could potentially integrate with Stowe. I think those would be some decision points, but I'll leave it at there. Thank you very much to staff and to council for this discussion. I mean, at the end of the day, the intent here is nothing more than trying to increase ridership. And I think we need to find innovative ways to do that. It comes with risk, and this is something we can consider in the future if we want to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hill. Councillor Leeper.
Thanks. I just want to understand the technological limitations a bit. And I'm not going too far down this path, but if you were to have a pass that allowed for 24 rides in the course of a month, you'd account for a 3-day-a-week worker, right? So 24 rides, and then you were to apply the same discount that people are getting if they're using their pass 5 days a week. For commuting, call it 18%. So if I sold you a pass for $72, that is good for 24 rides, that might be compelling to somebody. Why couldn't we just put that on the Presto so that it could be auto-loaded every month? $73 charge, 24 rides, use them or lose them by the end of the month.
Chair, the Presto system does not allow for an X number of rides to be encoded on the card. The system is built around a monthly unlimited pass or an electronic wallet. So there just isn't technically a way to do that on the Presto card.
There can't be so in the wallet, those funds are there until they're spent. There's no ability to impose a user lose it on those credits.
There's no ability to do that in a way that it's prepaid. You can apply a discount the more the card is used, but you cannot have the customer prepay the fare.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not, like I say, I'm not going to go too far down this path. I think the fare capping that has been introduced with the TAP should be very compelling for a lot of people to start trying it out. I congratulate you on doing that. The O payment system is a system of our own design. Do we control that O payment? It's not like Metrolinx.
Chair, yes, that is that's provided by a vendor that we deal with directly. It's not a Metrolinx system.
Congratulations on that, and I hope moving forward we'll have a lot more flexibility because we have created a system that is under our control. So, yeah, I appreciate the responses. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair, and I really do appreciate the comments from Councillor Hill there about this is the facts and this is what we are or what we're not going to do. I do agree with Mr. Scrimger that it is the service delivery that is the most important, right? Where the buses go, when they come, this was a central message to the argument against free transit during the campaign. Is free transit still going to be bad transit in the state of flux that we're in right now? So with all the improvements coming over the next little while, and the fulsome look at transit over the next little while, I'm hoping that that in itself will attract a lot of our passengers back, especially with the route review and the permanent fix to the LRT and everything. One thing I do want to know is the TAP. I don't see in my notes if I wrote this down already, but is the fare cap going to be introduced to Presto anytime soon? Because I feel like this conversation can lead into that conversation about introducing that, so that it's less of an upfront cost. It's possibly more equitable for a lot of our passengers who might not qualify for major discounts.
Chair, as Rawa said, for our regular service now, we are using chat and batchman technology. However, Metrolinx is working on something, but they don't have any solution yet.
Okay, so that's going to be dependent on Metrolinx then. Okay, thank you.
And Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to think of other cities in Canada where the government is a major employer, Victoria, or maybe Regina, Winnipeg, Halifax, Quebec City. Are they contemplating similar type of offering where if they've made decisions to allow their provincial public servants to work at home or work at home hybrid model, their transit systems must be hurting as well, maybe not to the same degree as ours here in Ottawa, but are we trying to create a solution on our own, or are there others that we can borrow that are actually working from other jurisdictions in Canada?
Chair, specifically in Quebec, Quebec City, not Quebec the province, I know that federal provincial workers are back for a while now, and they didn't change the fare rate, and they have seen definitively a better ridership, and people use the monthly pass. But I think they are back 3 days per week. Here, we don't know yet how.
Yeah, I read every single bit of correspondence that comes into my office, including OC Transpo issues. And I'm trying to think if one federal public servant has written to me about a new fare class. I don't think that's the case. To other councillors' comments, if someone is willing to drive their own vehicle, gas, insurance, wear and tear, $20 or more for parking, it speaks to that's a more attractive option to them than taking public transit. And we have to answer that question as to why that's the case. Because transit can be free and there'll still be people who choose not to take it because of reliability issues. And that's always been the Achilles heel of OC Transpo. So I think it was very important to do the work. I appreciate the report because it better informs us, because we were thinking about this earlier this year. And I do appreciate your recommendation going forward and comments from my colleagues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm seeing no additional questions. So, you're always just under the wire.
Thank you. I am being told that Hamilton has fare capping on Presto. I'm taking a look at the Hamilton website, and I would be grateful if you could get back to me before council with an understanding of whether or not it's technically feasible to fare cap on Presto.
Chair, it is technically feasible to fare cap for e-purse on Presto. Monthly capping is possible. Daily capping is not. And we are working with Metrolinx to implement monthly fare capping. So that should come mid-2024. Unfortunately, the daily cap is not possible.
Okay, and so that's the difference in Hamilton, is that it's not, it looks like it is a no more than 10 rides in a week. Bear with me. If you take more than 10 trips in 1 week using your card balance, all subsequent rides will be free for that week.
Yes, weekly. So that utilizes what's called the loyalty program, which is what I referred to earlier. So it applies a discount the more that you ride. It doesn't allow you to prepay for the transit.
Okay.
And it didn't satisfy the subscription sort of requirement of this product.
But for somebody using their mobile wallet credits on Presto, it could apply a 100% discount to trips 11, 12, 13.
Yes, that's right.
So that's fare capping.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep. And it's possible for, but it's possible on a weekly basis or a monthly basis,
Okay.
not on a daily basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad for that clarification. Thank you.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, just
Yes.
to reemphasize what both Renee and Laurier have said, we are working with Metrolinx to bring that to Ottawa. Monthly capping with e-purse.
Okay, thank you. I want to encourage counselors on page, I don't see page numbers, page 3 of the report, and we saw it in the presentation as well, some of the range of special discounts. I'd forgotten about 2 customers traveling together on weekends and holidays can travel for the price of a single one-day pass. But kids 12 and under can travel for free, seniors free Sunday, Wednesdays. I think there's still some opportunity for us as counselors to remind our residents through newsletters and social media about the range of special discounts. And I think there's still a lot of people who don't know what's available. All right, is this report received? Received, thank you. Thank you to staff for that update. Item 8.1 is the status update, Transit Commission inquiries and motions for the period ending September 1st. Is that received? Received, no debate, no discussion, good. Any in-camera items? No. Any notices of motion? Notices of motion? No. I think we have one inquiry from Councillor Lowe.
Yep,
Over to you.
I'll make it quick. So it's no secret that the school bus driver shortage exacerbated by the pandemic is challenging for the Ottawa Student Transportation Authority and the Consortium de Transport Scolaire d'Ottawa. The nature of driving school buses means the pool of potential employees for them is just small in comparison to other fields of work. Consequently, it appears OSTA and the CTSO have been increasingly relying on OC Transpo. Every school trip, including trips on regular routes and the 600 series, falls within peak periods when the demands on OC Transpo's resources are at its highest. OC Transpo places its highest priority on school trips, which sometimes causes the redeployment of resources on regular service, including in rare cases while trips are still in progress to provide service for school trips, creating a negative impact on regular service customers. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read the questions, but that's the general gist of the questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lowe. Any other inquiries? Okay, seeing none. We have no other business. Our next meeting is October 12th and we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.